A black catering waitress just destroyed a plot to send a crime lord to prison for life. Kalen Vey, heir to Seattle's most feared criminal syndicate, was seconds from signing his empire away when she exposed the trap hidden in the contract. Now he's kidnapped her and vanished into the storm. The same organization that once ruined her future is now her only protection from federal agents and assassins hunting them both. One accidental discovery, one desperate alliance, and a conspiracy that turns an empire into a graveyard. If you want to see how far this story reaches, hit like and comment your city below. Let's begin. Rain hammered the floor-to-ceiling windows of the executive conference room on the 40th floor of Black Harbor Tower. The glass rattled in its frames like teeth chattering. Outside, downtown Seattle drowned under sheets of water that blurred the city into streaks of neon and shadow. Inside, the air smelled of expensive cologne, leather furniture, and something sharper, the kind of tension that preceded violence. Kalen Vey stood at the head of a mahogany table that could seat 20. Only 7 chairs were occupied tonight. His uncle Lucien sat 2 seats down, fingers steepled, face carved from stone. 3 corporate attorneys in identical charcoal suits flanked the opposite side, their briefcases open, documents spread like tarot cards predicting ruin. At the far end sat Marcus Holt, the syndicate's chief financial officer, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who hadn't made eye contact with Kalen in 3 weeks. Nobody spoke. Kalen studied the document in front of him. 43 pages of legalese dressed up as salvation. The words blurred together. Restructuring agreement, asset liquidation, discharge of liabilities. 6 months ago, the Black Harbor Syndicate had controlled shipping routes from Vancouver to San Diego, owned half the commercial real estate in 3 cities, and moved enough contraband to keep federal prosecutors awake at night. Now the empire was bleeding out, hemorrhaging money through wounds nobody could find. "Sign it," Lucien said. His voice carried the texture of gravel scraped across concrete. "We're out of options." Kalen didn't look up. His uncle had raised him after his father died, taught him how to read a balance sheet, how to negotiate with men who respected only fear, how to survive in a world where loyalty was currency and betrayal was inflation. Lucien Vey had built half this empire with his bare hands. If he said they were out of options, the situation was worse than catastrophic. But something felt wrong. Kalen's instincts had kept him alive through 2 assassination attempts, a federal investigation that collapsed under mysterious circumstances, and a turf war that left bodies floating in Puget Sound. Those same instincts now whispered that signing this document would be the last mistake he ever made. "Where's the bankruptcy trustee?" Kalen asked. One of the attorneys, the one with silver hair and a pink tie, cleared his throat. "En route. Weather delays. He'll countersign remotely once you've executed the agreement." "Convenient. Mr. Vey, we're operating under extreme time constraints. The federal pressure. I'm aware of the federal pressure." Kalen set down the pen. "I'm also aware that bankruptcy filings are public record. This agreement lands in a courthouse database, and every journalist, competitor, and prosecutor in the Pacific Northwest gets a roadmap to our infrastructure." The attorney smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "The filing will be sealed under protective order, trade secrets. We've already cleared it with the judge." Lucien leaned forward. "Kalen, sign the damn paper." Before Kalen could respond, the conference room door opened. A young woman in a white button-down shirt and black slacks entered, carrying a tray of coffee and water bottles. She moved with the practiced invisibility of service workers in rooms where power lived, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes down, footsteps silent on the carpet. Nobody acknowledged her. She set the tray on the sideboard and began distributing cups. Kalen watched her hands. They were steady. Most temps who wandered into syndicate business meetings couldn't stop trembling. This one moved like she'd done this 1,000 times. She placed a water bottle near Marcus, who flinched when her shadow crossed his notepad. She set coffee in front of the lead attorney, who didn't look up. When she reached Kalen, their eyes met for half a second. Hers were dark brown, sharp, and completely unafraid. She set down his coffee and turned away. That's when Kalen noticed she'd positioned herself directly behind the attorneys, close enough to see the documents spread across the table. Her gaze swept the pages. Not the casual glance of someone bored, the focused scan of someone reading. "Thank you," Kalen said. "That'll be all." She didn't move. The lead attorney frowned. "Miss, we'll need privacy for This isn't a bankruptcy agreement," she said. The room froze. Every head turned toward her. She stood perfectly still, staring at the document in front of Kaylin. Her voice carried no deference now, no submission, just cold certainty. "Excuse me?" The attorney's tone sharpened. She pointed at a clause buried on page 27. Section 14.3, subsection C. That's not standard restructuring language. That's a DOJ routing code. Department of Justice. This whole document is designed to function as a confession under Title 18, Section 1001. The moment Mr. Vey signs this, he's not filing bankruptcy. He's admitting to federal crimes with a legal signature binding him to every statement embedded in the operational disclosures. Silence. Kaylin's blood turned to ice water. "Who the hell are you?" Lucian's voice cut through the room like a blade. She met his eyes. "Someone who used to work for the Federal Public Defender's Office in D.C. before I got blacklisted and ended up serving coffee in Seattle." The lead attorney stood. "This is absurd. You're a catering temp making wild accusations about a legally vetted Page 32, footnote 18, she said. Cross-reference the asset disclosure section with the federal sentencing guidelines table on page 40. Every property you're surrendering matches predicate offenses for racketeering charges. You're not liquidating assets. You're cataloging evidence for a RICO prosecution. Kaylin grabbed the document. His eyes tore through page 32. She was right. The footnote referenced a table that didn't belong in bankruptcy filings. It belonged in criminal indictments. "Jesus Christ," Marcus whispered. Kaylin looked at his uncle. Lucian's face had gone pale. Not shocked, not confused, guilty. The realization hit Kaylin like a freight train. His uncle knew. Lucian had walked him into this room knowing exactly what that signature would trigger. 6 months of financial collapse. Internal sabotage. Enemies circling. It wasn't bad luck or market pressure. It was orchestrated. "Get out," Kaylin said quietly. The attorneys exchanged glances. "Mr. Vey, if you'll just—" Kaylin swept the documents off the table. Paper scattered across the floor like snow. "I said get out." They scrambled for their briefcases. The lead attorney tried to speak, thought better of it, and hurried toward the door. Marcus followed. Within 30 seconds, the room emptied except for Kaylin, Lucian, and the waitress who just detonated a bomb under the Empire. Kaylin turned to her. "What's your name?" "Nia Vale." "You always crash corporate meetings and destroy multi-million-dollar agreements?" "Only when they're designed to send someone to prison for life." Lucian stood. His hand drifted toward his jacket. Kaylin knew what that meant. His uncle carried a Sig Sauer P226 in a shoulder holster. He'd carried it for 30 years. Muscle memory was probably already reaching for it. "Don't," Kaylin said. "She's seen too much." "So have half the people in this building. That's not the problem." Kaylin's mind raced. Nia Vale, Federal Public Defender's Office, blacklisted, serving coffee in syndicate territory. None of that happened by accident. "Who sent you?" She shook her head. "Nobody sent me. I'm a temp. I show up where the agency tells me to show up. Tonight it was this building. I saw the document. I recognized the language. That's it." "You expect me to believe that?" "I don't care what you believe. I just saved you from signing a confession that would have buried you in a supermax cell for the next 40 years. You're welcome." Lucian moved, fast for a man in his 60s. His hand cleared his jacket. Kaylin was faster. He crossed the distance in 3 strides, grabbed his uncle's wrist, and slammed him against the window hard enough to crack the glass. "You set me up," Kaylin said. Lucian's eyes burned. "You're weak, just like your father. My father built this empire, and I perfected it. While you were playing businessman, I was making the hard decisions. This organization needed evolution. You were in the way." Kaylin's grip tightened. "So you orchestrated the collapse, drained the accounts, set up the feds, walked me into a trap. You would have destroyed everything we built trying to go legitimate. Trading cargo routes for city council meetings, negotiating with prosecutors. You're not a criminal, Kaylin. You're a coward pretending to be one." The insult landed like a punch. Kaylin released him and stepped back. His uncle straightened his jacket, retrieved the gun, and aimed it at Nia. "She's a loose end," Lucian said. "She's a witness who just proved you tried to frame your own nephew. Which is why she dies." Kaylin moved without thinking. He grabbed a water bottle from the sideboard and hurled it at Lucian's face. His uncle dodged, and in that split second, Kaylin lunged. They collided into the mahogany table. The gun went off. The bullet punched through the ceiling. Plaster dust rained down. Nia didn't scream. She ran, not toward the door, toward the documents scattered across the floor. She grabbed the entire agreement, all 43 pages, and shoved them into her waistband. Then she bolted for the exit. Kalen drove his elbow into Lucien's ribs, grabbed the gun, and threw it across the room. His uncle gasped for air. Kalen didn't wait. He ran after Nia. She was already in the hallway, sprinting toward the elevators. Kalen caught up in 5 strides, grabbed her arm, and spun her around. "Let go of me! Where are you going? Away from the psychopath with the gun!" Behind them, the conference room door slammed open. Lucien appeared, blood trickling from his nose, fury twisting his face into something inhuman. He shouted something in a language Kalen didn't recognize. Russian. 2 men in black suits emerged from a side office. Syndicate muscle. Loyal to Lucien. Kalen made a decision that would change everything. He tightened his grip on Nia's arm and pulled her toward the emergency stairwell. She fought him. He didn't let go. "Stop fighting or we both die." "You just kidnapped me." "I just saved your life. There's a difference." They hit the stairwell at a dead run. Footsteps thundered above and below them. Lucien's men were already moving. The entire building was compromised. Kalen had walked into his own headquarters and discovered it was enemy territory. They descended 15 floors in under 3 minutes. Nia kept pace, which surprised him. Most civilians couldn't handle that kind of sprint. She was fit, fast, and clearly terrified but not panicking. "Where are we going?" she gasped. "Parking garage, sub-level 3. "And then?" "Anywhere that isn't here." They burst through the stairwell door into the garage. Kalen's car, a black Audi RS7, sat in its reserved space near the exit ramp. He still had the keys in his pocket. Small miracles. He shoved Nia toward the passenger side. "Get in." "I'm not—" Gunfire cracked through the concrete space. Bullets sparked off the Audi's frame. Nia dove into the car. Kalen threw himself behind the wheel, started the engine, and punched the accelerator. The tires screamed. They rocketed toward the exit. More gunfire. The rear windshield exploded. Nia ducked. Kalen yanked the wheel, fishtailed around a concrete pillar, and aimed for the ramp. The Audi launched into the Seattle night doing 60. Rain slammed the windshield. Kalen couldn't see more than 20 feet ahead. He didn't slow down. Behind them, headlights appeared. 2 cars, maybe 3. Lucien's men weren't giving up. Nia twisted in her seat. "They're following us." "I noticed." "What do we do?" "We survive." Kalen blew through a red light, cut across 2 lanes, and merged onto the I-5 southbound. The speedometer hit 90. The Audi handled like a missile. He weaved through traffic, using every gap, trusting the car's engineering and his own reflexes. The pursuit vehicles kept pace. Nia pulled the crumpled document from her waistband. "This is what they want. Just throw it out the window." "That document is the only proof my uncle tried to destroy me. It's also proof of every crime your organization committed in the last decade, which makes it valuable leverage." She stared at him. "You're insane." "Probably." Kalen took the exit toward the port of Seattle. Industrial zones, shipping terminals, warehouses that belonged to the syndicate, or used to. Now he didn't know who controlled what. His entire world had inverted in less than 20 minutes. He pulled into a maze of container yards and killed the headlights. The Audi coasted between 2 rows of stacked cargo containers. Darkness swallowed them. Kalen shut off the engine. Rain drummed on the roof. Nia's breathing filled the car. Fast, shallow. She was crashing from the adrenaline. "Why did you tell me?" Kalen asked. "What?" "In the conference room. You could have stayed quiet, collected your paycheck, gone home. Why expose the trap?" She was silent for a long moment. "Because I know what it's like to get screwed by people you trust. I couldn't watch it happen to someone else, even if that someone is a crime lord. I didn't ask for your pity." "Good. Because I don't pity you. I just didn't want to be complicit in watching you get buried alive." Kalen studied her. Even in the darkness, he could see the set of her jaw, the anger in her posture. This wasn't some naive temp who stumbled into syndicate business. Nia Vale had history, scars, reasons. "The public defender's office," he said. "What happened?" Her expression hardened. "I testified against a federal prosecutor who was taking bribes to tank cases. Turned out he had friends. I got blacklisted, lost my job, lost my career, lost everything I'd worked 10 years to build. And now you're serving coffee. And now I'm surviving, same as you." Outside, headlights swept through the container yard. The pursuit vehicles were still searching. Kalen counted 3 cars, maybe a 4th circling the perimeter. Lucian had mobilized fast. That meant resources, manpower, loyal soldiers willing to hunt down the heir to the syndicate. This wasn't a coup. It was an execution. Kalen's phone buzzed. He checked the screen. A text from Marcus. "They're coming for you. Lucien Essine says you kidnapped a federal agent. Every crew in the city has your location. Get out now." "Damn it." Nia leaned over. "What?" He showed her the message. She went pale. "I'm not a federal agent." "Doesn't matter. Lucien just painted you as one. Every soldier in this organization will shoot you on sight thinking they're protecting the syndicate from a mole." "So what do we do?" Kalen's mind raced through options. He couldn't go to the police. The syndicate had cops on payroll across 3 counties. He couldn't go to the feds. Without context, they'd assume he kidnapped a civilian and throw him in a cell. He couldn't trust anyone inside the organization. Lucien's reach was too deep. He had one option, the kind of option desperate men took when the walls closed in. "I have a safe house," Kalen said. "Remote, off the books. Nobody knows about it except me." "Nobody?" "My father built it 30 years ago. After he died, I'm the only one with the access codes." "How far?" 3 hours north, past the Canadian border." Naya's eyes widened. "You want to take me across international borders while we're being hunted by criminals and federal agents?" "You have a better idea?" She didn't answer. Kalen started the engine. "I didn't think so." They left the container yard at high speed, heading north toward the mountains, the border, and whatever waited in the darkness beyond the city lights. Behind them, Seattle burned with sirens and searchlights. Ahead, the road disappeared into forest and rain. Nia sat rigid in the passenger seat, her hands gripping the door handle. "You realize this makes me an accessory to kidnapping. You're already accessory to exposing a federal sting operation. We passed legally safe about 40 minutes ago." "Great, my life is officially ruined." "Welcome to the club." They drove in silence for 20 minutes. Kalen kept checking the mirrors. No headlights followed, not yet. But Lucien wouldn't stop. His uncle was methodical, patient. He'd mobilized every resource, called in every favor. The hunt had just begun. Nia finally spoke. "Why did he do it?" "Lucien?" "Yeah, why destroy the empire he helped build?" Kalen gripped the steering wheel. "Because I was trying to change it. The syndicate used to move drugs, guns, contraband, high margin, high risk. I wanted to pivot, go legitimate. Real estate development, shipping logistics, political lobbying. Still criminal, but legal enough to avoid federal prison." "Sounds reasonable." Lucien thought it was weak. He believed we were meant to be predators, not businessmen. Legitimacy meant dilution, compromise. In his mind, I was killing the empire by trying to save it. So he killed it first. Apparently. Naya pulled out the crumpled agreement. Even in the dim light from the dashboard, Kalen could see her eyes scanning the pages. Reading, processing. Her mind worked fast, faster than most attorneys he'd hired. "This document is genius," she said quietly. "Evil, but genius. Every clause is a trap. The asset disclosures match criminal evidence. The liability releases are admissions. The restructuring terms contain coded references to federal statutes. Whoever designed this spent months building it. Lucien's been planning this for a while. Longer than a while. This is architecture, legal engineering. He didn't just want you gone. He wanted you destroyed so completely there'd be nothing left to rebuild." Kalen's jaw tightened. "He's going to regret that." They crossed into the Cascade Mountains. The rain turned to mist. Pine forest swallowed the highway. Civilization fell away behind them. Kalen pushed the Audi hard, trusting the road, the tires, and the machine. Nia broke the silence again. "What happens when we get to this safe house?" "We figure out how deep this goes." "How?" "The syndicate keeps archives, financial records, operational logs, everything documented in case we need leverage against partners or enemies. My father built redundancy into the system. If Lucian's been sabotaging us, there'll be a trail." "And you think I can find it? You found the trap in that document. You worked federal cases. You know how money moves when people try to hide it." She laughed, bitter, exhausted. "So you kidnapped me because you need an accountant. I kidnapped you because you're the only person in that room who told me the truth. That makes you either the smartest person I've met in years or the most dangerous. Either way, I need you alive." Comforting. The border crossing appeared ahead, a small station. 2 lanes, minimal traffic at this hour. Kalen slowed to legal speed. His fake Canadian passport sat in the glove box, documentation identifying him as a real estate investor from Vancouver. He'd used it a dozen times. Nia stiffened. I don't have a passport. You won't need one. How? Kalen pulled off the highway onto a dirt road that disappeared into the trees. There's another way across. Less official. They drove for 15 minutes through dense forest. The road narrowed to a trail. Branches scraped the Audi's sides. Finally, Kalen stopped near a cluster of boulders. He killed the engine. We walk from here. Nia stared at the darkness beyond the windshield. Walk where? Across the border. There's a footpath. Locals use it. Border Patrol doesn't monitor this section. You've done this before. More times than I can count. They got out of the car. The temperature had dropped 20 degrees. Nia shivered in her catering uniform. Kalen pulled a jacket from the trunk and handed it to her. She took it without a word. They walked. The forest closed around them. Rain-soaked earth muffled their footsteps. Kalen led the way using a flashlight app on his phone. Nia followed close behind. Neither spoke. 20 minutes later, they crossed an invisible line where American soil became Canadian. No markers. No fanfare. Just trees and darkness and the knowledge that they'd left one jurisdiction for another. How much farther? Nia whispered. Another hour. There's a service road on the other side of this ridge. I keep a vehicle there. They climbed. Nia struggled on the incline. Kalen slowed his pace. She didn't complain, just kept moving, stubborn, resilient, the kind of person who survived when everyone expected them to break. They crested the ridge. Below, headlights cut through the forest. Kalen grabbed Nia and pulled her behind a tree. Don't move. 2 vehicles. Black SUVs, moving slowly along the service road. Searchlights swept the trees, voices crackled over radios. Russian and English. Lucien's men had crossed the border. How did they know? Nia breathed. Kalen's mind raced. Marcus. The text warning. It wasn't a warning. It was bait. His uncle had anticipated the safe house, probably had people watching it for weeks. We're not going to the safe house, Kalen said. Then where? Anywhere they're not. They moved parallel to the ridge, staying in the trees, avoiding the searchlights. The SUVs continued their slow patrol. Kalen counted at least 8 men, armed, organized, professional. His father's safe house was compromised. The syndicate's infrastructure was poisoned. Every asset, every contact, every resource Kalen had relied on for 30 years was now a potential trap. He was completely alone, except for the woman beside him who'd accidentally saved his life and now couldn't escape the consequences. They walked for another 2 hours. The forest gave way to rocky terrain. A creek cut through a valley. Kalen followed it downstream until they reached a logging road. No vehicles, no lights, just gravel and darkness. Wait here, Kalen said. He disappeared into the trees. Nia stood alone on the empty road, shivering, exhausted, wondering how her life had imploded so completely in less than 6 hours. Kalen returned 10 minutes later driving a mud-covered pickup truck that looked like it had survived 3 decades of abuse. Get in. Nia climbed into the passenger seat. The interior smelled like oil and wet canvas. Where did this come from? Supply cash. My father built them all over the region. Vehicles, weapons, cash, insurance policies. Your father was paranoid. My father survived 40 years in this business. Paranoia kept him alive. They drove south, deeper into the Canadian wilderness. No destination, no plan, just distance between them and the men hunting them. Dawn broke gray and cold. The rain had stopped. Mist clung to the valleys. Kalen pulled off the logging road into a clearing surrounded by pine trees. He killed the engine. Nia looked at him. Her face was pale, exhausted, angry. What now? She asked. Kalen stared through the windshield at the forest. Now we figure out how to destroy my uncle before he destroys us. That's your plan? That's all I have. She laughed. It sounded broken. I served coffee yesterday. Today I'm an international fugitive helping a crime lord commit patricide. This is insane. Yeah. I should have stayed quiet. Probably. Why didn't I? Kalen turned to face her. Because you're not the kind of person who stays quiet when someone's about to get buried alive. Even when staying quiet would save you. Nia met his eyes. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, she pulled the crumpled agreement from her jacket. 43 pages of evidence, conspiracy, and betrayal. If we're doing this, she said quietly, we're doing it right. We find every crime Lucian committed, every dollar he stole, every lie he told. And we burn him to the ground so completely there's nothing left but ash. Kaylin smiled. It felt like the first honest expression he'd made in years. Deal. Outside, the Canadian wilderness stretched in every direction. No cities, no empires, no safe ground. Just two fugitives, one document, and a war that had only just begun. The cabin sat 3 miles off any marked road, buried in a forest so dense the canopy blocked most of the daylight. Kaylin had found it by accident 2 years ago while scouting territory for a smuggling route that never materialized. The structure was old, maybe 40 years, built by loggers or hunters who'd long since abandoned it. One room. Plank floors, a wood stove that still worked. No electricity, no running water, just 4 walls and a roof that didn't leak too badly. Perfect. He parked the pickup behind a wall of overgrown blackberry bushes and killed the engine. Nia hadn't spoken in over an hour. She sat rigid in the passenger seat, staring at nothing, her hand still gripping the crumpled document like it was the only solid thing left in her world. "We're here," Kaylin said. She blinked, looked around. Here is nowhere. That's the point. They got out. The forest smelled like wet earth and rotting pine needles. Crows called from the trees, wind moved through the branches with a sound like breathing. Kaylin grabbed a duffel bag from the truck bed, supplies he'd stashed in the vehicle months ago. Water bottles, canned food, a first aid kit, 2 handguns, and ammunition. Nia saw the guns. Her expression didn't change. She was past shock, past fear, operating on fumes and spite. Inside, the cabin was exactly as Kaylin remembered. Dust covered every surface. A metal frame bed sat against one wall, the mattress stained and sagging. The wood stove squatted in the corner like a rusted beast. A single window overlooked the forest. No curtains, no glass, just a wooden shutter hanging on broken hinges. Kaylin dropped the duffel on the floor. It's not the Ritz. It's also not a federal holding cell. Nia set the document on a wooden crate that served as a table. So I'll take it. He started unloading supplies. Nia wandered to the window and stared out at the trees. Her shoulders were tight, her breathing shallow. She was holding herself together through sheer willpower, but the cracks were starting to show. You should eat something, Kaylin said. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten in 12 hours. I also haven't slept, showered, or processed the fact that I'm a fugitive in a foreign country with a man who runs a criminal empire. Food seems irrelevant. Kaylin tossed her a protein bar. It hit her in the chest. She caught it reflexively. Eat, he said. You're no good to me if you collapse. She ripped open the wrapper and ate mechanically. No pleasure, just fuel. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and turned to face him. We need a plan. Agreed. What do you know about Lucien's operations? Not enough. I ran the legitimate side of the business, real estate acquisitions, shipping logistics, political connections. Lucien handled the black market operations, drugs, weapons, contraband. We divided the empire. I thought it was efficiency. Turns out it was insulation. Insulation from what? From knowing what he was really doing. Nia picked up the document and flipped through the pages. This agreement references asset disclosures across 7 countries. Shell corporations in Panama, the Cayman Islands, Singapore, offshore accounts with transaction histories going back a decade. If Lucien was sabotaging the syndicate, the money trail will show it. Can you follow the trail? She looked at him. I spent 5 years prosecuting financial crimes for the federal government. I know how rich people hide money, but I need access to your financial records, account numbers, corporate structures, everything. The syndicate keeps encrypted backups of all financial data, cloud servers, accessible anywhere with the right credentials. Do you have the credentials? Kaylin pulled a small USB drive from his pocket. My father gave me this before he died. Said it was the keys to the kingdom. I never used it. Why not? Because I trusted Lucien to handle the parts of the business I didn't want to see. Nia took the drive, turned it over in her hands. That trust almost killed you. I'm aware. She sat down on the edge of the bed. Springs creaked under her weight. We're going to need a laptop, internet access, time. There's a town 15 miles south. I can get a burner laptop and a mobile hotspot. How long? 2 hours? Maybe 3. Nia nodded. Then go. I'll stay here and start cataloging what's in this document. Kalen hesitated. Leaving her alone felt wrong. Not because he didn't trust her, because she was the only person left in his world who wasn't trying to kill him. If something happens, I'll handle it. You don't have a weapon. She reached into the duffel and pulled out one of the handguns, checked the magazine, racked the slide, safed it. Her movements were practiced, confident. Kalen raised an eyebrow. Public defenders carry guns? Public defenders in D.C. do. When half your clients are violent offenders and the other half are people who got screwed by violent offenders, you learn to protect yourself. Good to know. He left her there and drove back toward civilization. The logging road eventually connected to a two-lane highway that wound through farmland and scattered towns. He found an electronics store in a strip mall that looked like it had survived the 1980s and never updated. Bought a cheap laptop with cash. Added a mobile hotspot. Picked up more food, bottled water, and a burner phone. The clerk, a teenager with bad skin and bored eyes, didn't ask questions. Kalen paid and left. On the drive back, his mind worked through variables. Lucien had resources. Manpower. Decades of accumulated leverage. Every cop, politician, and criminal operator from Vancouver to San Diego owed the syndicate favors. Calling them in would take time, but not much. Kalen had a USB drive, a laptop, and a disgraced federal attorney who'd accidentally saved his life. The math didn't favor him. He returned to the cabin 3 hours after leaving. The sun had dropped behind the mountains. Gray light filtered through the trees. Inside, Nia sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by torn pages from the document. She'd separated them into piles, categories. Her handwriting covered the margins, notes, cross-references, questions. She looked up when he entered. "You're back." "Were you worried?" "No. But if you didn't come back, I was going to steal your truck and drive to the nearest U.S. consulate." Honest. Survival instinct. Kalen set down the laptop and supplies. Nia immediately grabbed the computer, powered it up, and inserted the USB drive. Her fingers moved across the keyboard like she was born doing it. Lines of code scrolled down the screen. File directories appeared. Folder after folder of encrypted data. "This is extensive," she murmured. "Your father was thorough. He survived 4 decades in this business. Thoroughness was religion." She opened the first file. Financial records from 15 years ago. Transaction logs, bank transfers, corporate filings. The data was organized chronologically, cross-referenced by entity, tagged with operational codes. Nia's eyes moved fast, reading, processing. Her expression shifted from concentration to confusion to horror. "What?" Kalen asked. She didn't answer, just kept scrolling, faster. Her breathing quickened. "Nia, what did you find?" She turned the laptop toward him. On the screen, a series of offshore transactions dating back 8 years. Millions of dollars moving through shell corporations registered in jurisdictions with no extradition treaties. The transactions were tagged with operational codes Kalen didn't recognize. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "Money laundering, but not the kind your syndicate usually does." "Explain." She pulled up another file. Standard laundering moves dirty money through legitimate businesses to clean it. Restaurants, real estate, casinos. You take cash from illegal operations and make it look like legal revenue. This is different. How? This is extraction. Someone's been siphoning money out of the syndicate's legitimate operations and routing it offshore. Not to clean it, to steal it. Kalen's blood turned cold. How much? Nia ran a calculation. Conservatively, $200 million over 8 years? Jesus Christ. It gets worse. She opened another folder. The extraction accelerated 6 months ago, right when your syndicate started its financial collapse. Whoever's doing this didn't just steal the money, they timed the theft to trigger a liquidity crisis. Lucien. Has to be. He's the only one with access to both sides of the operation, legal and illegal. Kalen paced the cabin. His mind raced. 200 million stolen. The syndicate bled dry from the inside. Lucien orchestrating the collapse while positioning himself to what? Why would he destroy the empire he helped build? Kalen said aloud. Nia's fingers kept moving across the keyboard. Maybe he's not destroying it. Maybe he's stealing it. What's the difference? She pulled up a network diagram. Corporate entities, ownership structures, lines connecting shell companies across multiple jurisdictions. At the center, a holding company registered in Singapore. This is the destination, Nia said. All the stolen money flows here. $200 million sitting in a corporate entity that owns nothing. No assets, no operations, just cash, waiting to be deployed. Exactly. Lucian didn't destroy the syndicate. He gutted it, extracted the wealth, and now he's sitting on a war chest ready to rebuild on his terms. Kalen stared at the screen. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was systematic. Lucian had spent 8 years planning this, stealing from the Empire piece by piece, waiting for the moment when the collapse would look like bad luck instead of sabotage, and Kalen had been blind to all of it. There's more, Nia said quietly. How could there possibly be more? She opened another file. This one wasn't financial records. It was operational logs. Coded entries documenting shipments, routes, cargo manifests. Nia scrolled through hundreds of entries. Most were standard, containers of electronics, textiles, machinery. Legal goods moved through legitimate channels. But some entries were different, tagged with a code Kalen had never seen, GH protocol. What's GH? Nia asked. I don't know. She clicked on one of the tagged entries. A manifest appeared. Container number. Shipping route. Origin port in Manila. Destination port in Vancouver. Contents listed as mechanical parts. But the weight was wrong. Mechanical parts didn't weigh that much, and the refrigeration requirements made no sense for machinery. Nia's face went pale. Oh God. What? GH doesn't stand for a product code. It stands for Ghost Harbor. Meaning, she pulled up more entries, dozens of them, all tagged GH protocol, all listing cargo that didn't match the weight, refrigeration, or handling specifications, all moving through routes designed to avoid customs inspections. Ghost ships, Nia whispered. Your uncle's been running ghost ships. Kalen's stomach dropped. Explain. It's a trafficking method. You hide illegal cargo inside legitimate shipping operations. Use real manifests, real container numbers, real port schedules. But the actual cargo isn't what's listed. It's people, or organs, or both. The cabin felt like it was shrinking. Kalen couldn't breathe. You're saying Lucian's been trafficking people? I'm saying these logs indicate refrigerated containers moving through routes known for human smuggling, with weights and handling requirements consistent with transporting living cargo. Kalen grabbed the laptop, scrolled through the entries, counted them. 37 shipments over 3 years, all tagged GH protocol, all using syndicate vessels, all approved by... His own signature appeared on half the manifests. I signed these, Kalen said. You approved shipping manifests. You didn't know what was inside the containers. That doesn't matter. My signature is on documents authorizing human trafficking. Lucien set you up. He buried the real operation inside your legitimate business. When this comes out, you take the fall. He walks away clean with $200 million and a rebuilt empire. Kalen's hands shook. Rage, horror, guilt, all of it mixing into something toxic and combustible. How many people? He asked. Nia ran another calculation. If each container held an average of 15 individuals, roughly 550 people over 3 years. 550 lives. Stolen, transported, sold. Using infrastructure Kalen had built, ships he'd purchased, routes he'd negotiated. He'd unknowingly become an architect of human misery. I need air. Kalen walked outside. The forest had gone dark. Stars appeared between the branches. Cold air bit his lungs. He wanted to vomit, wanted to scream, wanted to go back in time and burn the entire syndicate to the ground before Lucian could poison it. Nia followed him out. She didn't speak, just stood a few feet away, giving him space but staying close enough that he wasn't alone. I didn't know, Kalen said. I believe you. Does it matter? To the law? No. To the victims? Probably not. She paused. To me? Yeah, it matters. He looked at her. Why? Because there's a difference between being evil and being used. You were used. Lucian turned you into a weapon and aimed you at innocent people. That doesn't absolve you, but it doesn't make you him either. What does it make me? Someone who has a choice now. You can run, disappear, change your name and spend the rest of your life pretending this didn't happen. Or you can stop it. How? I'm a fugitive, no resources, no allies, no leverage. Nia gestured back toward the cabin. You have 500 pages of evidence documenting your uncle's crimes. You have financial records showing systematic theft and human trafficking. And you have me, someone who knows how to turn that evidence into a case that destroys him. The feds will arrest me the second I surface. Probably. But if we do this right, Lucian goes down with you, and those ghost ships stop running. Kalen stared into the darkness. 550 people. Maybe more. The number kept growing in his mind, faces he'd never see, names he'd never know, lives destroyed by an empire he'd inherited and failed to understand. Where do we start? He asked. We need to find one of the ships, get physical evidence, survivors, something beyond financial records and manifests. The feds won't move on paper alone. They need proof that's undeniable. The next shipment. Can you access the current operational schedule? They went back inside. Nia pulled up the most recent logs. The data was only 3 days old. One entry jumped out. A container ship called the Pacific Horizon, currently docked in Vancouver, scheduled to depart in 48 hours. Destination? Port of Los Angeles. Cargo manifest listed machinery and textiles, tagged GH Protocol. This is it, Nia said. Kalen studied the entry. Vancouver Port has security, cameras, guards. We can't just walk onto a commercial vessel. You own the shipping company. Lucian controls it now. The second I show my face, security will detain me. Then we don't use your face. She pulled up the crew manifest. 12 names, all longtime syndicate employees, loyal to Lucien, except one, a junior cargo supervisor named Marcus Chen. New hire, 6 weeks on the job. Nia pointed at the name. He's not part of the old guard. Probably doesn't even know who you are. So we approach him, offer cash, get him to let us access the cargo hold for 10 minutes. And if he refuses, then we find another way in. Kalen looked at her. This woman who'd been serving coffee 2 days ago was now planning a covert infiltration of a commercial shipping vessel to expose a human trafficking operation. You're insane, he said. I'm motivated. There's a difference. They spent the next hour refining the plan. Nia mapped the port layout using satellite images. Kalen identified weak points in the security perimeter. They debated approach vectors, backup plans, extraction routes. It felt like preparing for war. Because it was. At midnight, Nia finally stopped. She rubbed her eyes. Exhaustion carved lines into her face. We should sleep, she said. We'll need to be sharp tomorrow. Kalen nodded. They'd been running on adrenaline for 36 hours. The crash was inevitable. Nia took the bed. Kalen stretched out on the floor using his jacket as a pillow. The planks were hard, the air was cold. He didn't care. Sleep didn't come easy. He stared at the ceiling, listening to Nia's breathing slow and deepen. Somewhere out there, a ship waited in Vancouver Harbor. Inside its cargo hold, human beings trapped in refrigerated containers, waiting to be sold, harvested, erased. Because of an empire Kalen had failed to protect. Because of a system he'd failed to question. Because of a trust he'd failed to verify. The guilt was a living thing. It crawled through his chest and wrapped around his lungs. He'd spent 30 years believing he was building something, legitimizing a criminal enterprise, transforming violence into commerce. But he'd just been laundering horror through paperwork. Kalen? Nia's voice cut through the darkness. Yeah, you're not sleeping. Can't. Me neither. Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable, just heavy. Can I ask you something? Nia said. Go ahead. Why did you really try to go legitimate? Most crime lords don't care about respectability. Kalen exhaled slowly. My father died in a shootout with a rival syndicate. I was 19. Watched him bleed out on a warehouse floor while his soldiers did nothing. He'd spent 40 years building fear, loyalty, and power, and when it mattered, none of it saved him. So you decided to be different. I decided violence was inefficient. Fear is expensive. You spend more resources maintaining control than you gain from having it. I thought if we transitioned to legitimate operations, we'd be untouchable. Lawyers instead of guns. Political influence instead of street wars. Did it work? For a while. We doubled revenue in 5 years. Cut violent incidents by 70%. I thought I was building a legacy. Turns out I was just building camouflage for my uncle's atrocities. Nia was quiet for a moment. You know what I think? What? I think you were trying to be better than your father. That's not weakness. That's courage. Lucien would disagree. Lucien's a sociopath running a human trafficking ring. His opinion is irrelevant. Despite everything, Kaylin smiled in the darkness. You don't pull punches. I stopped pulling punches when I got blacklisted for telling the truth. Life's too short for polite lies. How did you end up in Seattle? After I lost my job in DC, I burned through my savings in 3 months. Applied to every law firm, nonprofit, and government agency within 500 miles. Nobody would touch me. The prosecutor I testified against had connections everywhere, so I moved west. Figured Seattle was far enough from DC that maybe I could start over. Serving coffee. Surviving. I told myself it was temporary. Keep my head down, rebuild my reputation, find a way back into the law. She laughed bitterly. Then I walked into your conference room and destroyed any chance of a normal life. You saved my life. I ruined both our lives. There's a difference. Kaylin rolled onto his side. He could see her silhouette on the bed, small, tense, stubborn. For what it's worth, he said, I'm glad you were in that room. Yeah? Yeah, most people would have stayed quiet, collected their paycheck, gone home. You risked everything to tell a stranger the truth. That takes guts. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. Nia shifted on the bed. Springs creaked. What happens after we stop the ship? Assuming we survive? Assuming we survive. Kaylin thought about it. We turn over everything to the feds, the financial records, the manifests, the evidence. Let them dismantle the syndicate. And then? Then I go to prison for the rest of my life. You don't have to. Yes, I do. My signature is on those documents. I approve those shipments. I built the infrastructure Lucian used. Ignorance isn't a defense. Intent matters. Not to the victims. Naya didn't argue. She understood. Some sins couldn't be undone. Some guilt couldn't be absolved. The best you could do was stop the bleeding and accept the consequences. What about you? Kaylin asked. What happens to you after this? Witness protection, probably. Federal testimony. A new name, a new city. A life spent looking over my shoulder. Sounds lonely. Sounds familiar. They fell silent again. Outside, wind moved through the trees. An owl called from somewhere deep in the forest. The world kept turning despite the wreckage they'd uncovered. Kaylin? Yeah. If we actually pull this off, if we stop that ship and bring down Lucian, it won't fix what happened to those 500 people. I know. But it'll stop the next 500. I know that too. Good. As long as we're clear on what we're fighting for. We're fighting to stop monsters. Even if one of those monsters is you? Kaylin closed his eyes. Especially if one of those monsters is me. Morning came gray and cold. Kaylin woke to find Nia already awake, sitting cross-legged on the floor with the laptop balanced on her knees. She'd been working. Her eyes were bloodshot. Coffee would have helped. They didn't have any. Find something? Kaylin asked. Maybe. I cross-referenced the GH protocol shipments with port inspection records. Most of the containers passed through customs without incident, but 3 were flagged for secondary inspection. And the inspection reports are missing, deleted from the database, which means someone with access to federal systems scrubbed the records. Lucian has cops on payroll, not just cops. This level of access requires someone inside Customs and Border Protection, maybe higher. Kaylin sat up. His back ached from sleeping on the floor. How high? I don't know yet, but whoever's protecting these shipments has serious institutional power. Great. So we're not just fighting my uncle. We're fighting corrupt federal agents. Looks like it. Kaylin rubbed his face. This keeps getting better. They spent the morning preparing. Kaylin counted the cash from the duffel. $7,300. Not enough to disappear forever, but enough to operate for a few weeks. Nia drafted a strategy for approaching Marcus Chen. They rehearsed the conversation, anticipated objections, prepared contingencies. By noon, they were ready. They loaded into the truck and drove south toward Vancouver. The highway cut through farmland and forest. Traffic was light. Kaylin kept checking the mirrors. No tail. Not yet. Nia stared out the window. What if Chen reports us to security? Then we abort and find another way in. And if there is no other way, there's always another way. It's just a question of how much damage you're willing to accept. They reached Vancouver by mid-afternoon. The port sprawled across miles of waterfront, container yards, cargo cranes, warehouses stacked with shipping containers. The Pacific Horizon sat at Dock 7, a massive vessel with rust-streaked hull and faded paint. Kaylin parked 3 blocks from the main gate. They walked the rest of the way. Nia wore sunglasses and a baseball cap. Kaylin kept his head down. Security cameras covered every approach, but they couldn't avoid them all. They found Marcus Chen on his break, smoking a cigarette outside a warehouse near the dock. He was young, mid-20s maybe, Asian features, thin build. He looked tired, overworked. Perfect. Kaylin approached. Marcus Chen? The kid flinched. Who's asking? Someone who needs 10 minutes inside the Pacific Horizon. Are you insane? That ship's restricted. I can't just... Kaylin pulled out $5,000 in cash, set it on the crate beside Marcus. The kid stared at the money. What is this? Payment for 10 minutes. You let us into the cargo hold. We take some photos, we leave. You never saw us. Photos of what? That's not your concern. Marcus looked at Nia, then back at Kaylin. His hands shook. If I get caught, you won't. We'll be fast, in and out. Why should I trust you? Because we're paying you $5,000 for 10 minutes of your time. That's more trust than you'll get from anyone else in this port. Marcus picked up the cash, counted it. His expression shifted from fear to calculation. 10 minutes. That's it. And if security shows up, I don't know you. Deal. They followed him through a side entrance, avoided the main security checkpoints, moved through cargo corridors filled with containers stacked 3 high. The Pacific Horizon loomed ahead, massive and silent. Marcus used his access card to open a service door. They climbed a metal staircase to the main deck. The ship was mostly empty. Skeleton crew. Most of the workers had gone home for the day. Cargo hold is below, Marcus whispered. You've got 8 minutes before the next patrol. They descended into the ship's belly. The air turned cold. Refrigeration units hummed. Emergency lighting cast everything in sickly yellow. Rows of containers lined the hold, each marked with codes and shipping numbers. Nia pulled out her phone and started cross-referencing container numbers against the manifests. Looking for... there. She pointed at a container in the back corner. Number matched the GH protocol entry from the logs. Kaylin approached. The container was locked. Heavy-duty padlock. Industrial-grade seal. He pulled out a crowbar from his jacket, started prying at the lock. Hurry! Nia whispered. The lock snapped. The seal broke. Kaylin grabbed the container doors and pulled. They swung open. Inside, darkness. A smell hit them. Sweat, urine, fear. Kaylin pulled out a flashlight. The beam revealed hell. 20 women. Maybe more. Huddled in the back of the container. Chained to the walls, eyes wide with terror. Some were unconscious. Others stared at the light like they'd forgotten what it looked like. Nia gasped. Oh my God! One of the women spoke. Thai. Or maybe Cambodian. Kaylin didn't understand the words, but the tone was universal. Pleading. Desperate. These weren't just victims, they were inventory. Nia started taking photos. Her hands shook so badly she could barely hold the phone. Kaylin moved closer, tried to communicate. The women recoiled. We're not going to hurt you, he said. They didn't believe him. Why would they? Nia grabbed his arm. We need to get them out. We can't. Not here. Not now. Security. We're not leaving them. If we try to move them, we'll get caught. Then nobody gets saved. So what do we do? Kaylin's mind raced. They had photos, evidence. But leaving these women here felt like complicity. Like murder. Footsteps echoed from above. Marcus appeared at the top of the stairs. His face was pale. Security's coming. You need to leave. Now. Nia looked at the women, then at Kaylin. Her eyes begged him for an answer he didn't have. We'll come back, Kaylin said. Tonight, with help. Help from who? I don't know yet, but we're not leaving them here to die. They closed the container, locked it, ran. Behind them, the women's voices rose in desperate pleading that echoed through the cargo hold like ghosts screaming from a grave. They made it off the ship with 30 seconds to spare. Security swept through the cargo hold just as Kaylin and Nia slipped through the service door Marcus had left unlocked. They didn't run. Running drew attention. They walked with the measured pace of workers finishing a shift, heads down, voices low, blending into the stream of port employees heading toward the parking lots. Marcus met them at the warehouse. His face was slick with sweat. His hands trembled as he lit another cigarette. You saw them, he said. Not a question. A statement heavy with guilt. Kalen nodded. How many ships? Marcus asked. At least 3 dozen over the past 3 years, maybe more. The kid exhaled smoke. His eyes were hollow. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know. I just started working here 6 weeks ago. They told me some containers were temperature sensitive, special handling. I thought it was pharmaceuticals or something. It's not your fault, Nia said. Then whose fault is it? Kalen met his eyes. Mine. I own the shipping company. Or I did. Those containers moved on my authority. Marcus stared at him. Recognition flickered across his face. Wait, you're Kalen Vey. You're the guy everyone's looking for. Yeah. There's a bounty on your head, $50,000, dead or alive. I know. The kid's hand drifted toward his phone. Kalen didn't move. Didn't threaten. Just waited. Marcus looked at his phone. Then at Kalen. Then at the Pacific horizon looming in the distance. Finally, he shoved the phone back in his pocket. $50,000 would change my life, Marcus said quietly, but it wouldn't let me sleep at night. Smart kid. What are you going to do? Stop the ship. Get those women out. Burn everything Lucien built. How? I'm still figuring that out. Marcus crushed his cigarette under his boot. The Pacific horizon leaves in 36 hours. If you're going to do something, you're running out of time. They left the port and drove back toward the cabin in silence. Nia stared out the window, her jaw clenched, her breathing shallow. She hadn't spoken since they'd closed the container. The images were burned into both their minds. 20 women chained in darkness, eyes empty of hope, bodies reduced to cargo. Kalen kept seeing their faces. When they reached this cabin, Nia walked straight to the woods and vomited. Kalen heard her retching in the darkness. He didn't follow. She needed space. They both did. He went inside and opened the laptop, started reviewing the operational files again, looking for leverage, weak points, anything they could exploit. The files showed 6 more ships scheduled to depart in the next 2 weeks, 6 more containers filled with human beings. The operation wasn't winding down. It was accelerating. Nia came back inside 20 minutes later. Her face was pale, her eyes red. We can't wait for the feds, she said. What? We can't collect evidence and hand it over and hope the system works. By the time federal prosecutors build a case, that ship will be gone. Those women will disappear. We'll have photos and testimony, but no survivors. What are you suggesting? We sink the ship. Kalen stared at her. You want to blow up a commercial vessel in Vancouver Harbor? I want to make sure those containers never reach their destination. If we destroy the ship, we force an investigation. Maritime disaster, international incident. Canadian and U.S. authorities swarm the wreckage. They find the containers. The women get rescued. Lucien's entire operation gets exposed. And we get arrested for domestic terrorism. Probably. But the women live. That's what matters. Kalen leaned back against the wall. She was right. Morally, strategically, tactically, she was absolutely right. They could spend weeks building a case, navigating bureaucracy, convincing skeptical prosecutors. Or they could act now and force the system to respond. I know someone who can get us explosives, Kalen said. Who? Former demolitions expert, worked for the syndicate 10 years ago, got out clean, owes me a favor. Will he help? For enough money, he'll help anyone. They spent the next hour planning. Nia mapped the ship's structure using online schematics. Kalen identified weak points, fuel tanks, engine room, hull supports. They calculated blast radius, collateral damage, civilian risk. It was insane. It was also the only option that saved lives in the immediate term. At midnight, Kalen made the call. The demolitions expert, a man named Victor who spoke English with a thick Russian accent, answered on the third ring. Vey, I heard you were dead. Not yet. What do you want? C4, detonators, remote triggers, enough to sink a container ship. Silence. Then, you're serious. Completely. That's a lot of ordnance. Expensive, risky. Name your price. $75,000, half up front. Kalen did the math. He had $7,300 in cash. The rest of the syndicate's liquid assets were frozen or controlled by Lucien. He had no access to accounts, credit, or resources. I can pay you $10,000 now, Kalen said. The rest after the job. Victor laughed. You're broke and hunted. Why would I extend credit? Because if this works, I'm bringing down the entire Black Harbor syndicate. That includes the people who've been squeezing you for protection money the last 5 years. Another silence. Longer this time. Where and when? Victor asked. They arranged a meeting for the following night, a warehouse outside Surrey, cash on delivery. Kaylin hung up and looked at Nia. We're short $65,000. Can you get it? Not legally. Since when has legality been a constraint? Opta. Kaylin pulled up the financial records on the laptop. Lucien's offshore accounts. $200 million stolen from the syndicate. Most of it was locked behind encryption and banking security. But there was one account, a slush fund Lucien kept for operational expenses. $10 million sitting in a Cayman Islands bank, accessible through basic wire transfer protocols. I can steal from my uncle, Kaylin said. How? My father set up the account 30 years ago. He gave me the access codes in case of emergency. Lucien doesn't know I have them. That's embezzlement. That's justice. Nia smiled. It was cold and sharp. Do it. Kaylin initiated the transfer. $75,000 from Lucien's operational fund to a burner account Victor had provided. The transaction took 3 minutes. When it cleared, Kaylin felt a savage satisfaction. His uncle had bled the syndicate dry. Now Kaylin was bleeding him. They slept in shifts. Nia took the first watch. Kaylin collapsed on the floor and fell into a dreamless sleep that felt more like unconsciousness. When Nia woke him 4 hours later, dawn was breaking gray and cold through the trees. Your turn, she said. She took his place on the floor. Within minutes, her breathing deepened. Kaylin sat by the window and watched the forest. Crows called from the branches. Mist clung to the valley. The world looked peaceful. It was a lie. Somewhere out there, Lucien was mobilizing. Federal agents were searching. 20 women sat chained in a cargo container waiting for death or rescue. And Kaylin was preparing to commit an act that would either save them or get everyone killed. He checked the laptop. New emails had arrived overnight in one of the syndicate's administrative accounts. Kaylin scanned them. Most were routine, shipping schedules, payroll notifications, maintenance requests. Then he saw it, an email from Lucien to the syndicate's senior leadership. Subject line, Operational Restructuring. Kaylin opened it. The message was brief. Clinical. Lucien announced that Kaylin Vey had been removed from all operational authority effective immediately. The official reason? Mental instability and erratic behavior. Lucien was assuming full control of the syndicate. All personnel were instructed to report directly to him. Anyone harboring or assisting Kaylin would be considered a traitor. Attached to the email, a warrant for Kaylin's arrest issued by a federal magistrate in Seattle. The charges were staggering: racketeering, money laundering, human trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder. The evidence cited in the warrant included shipping manifests Kaylin had signed, financial transactions he'd authorized, and witness testimony from syndicate employees. Lucien had built a perfect case. Every document, every signature, every decision Kaylin had made in the last 5 years had been weaponized against him. His uncle had transformed Kaylin's attempts at legitimacy into proof of systematic criminality. The trap wasn't just the bankruptcy agreement. The trap was Kaylin's entire professional life. He stared at the screen. His hands went numb. The warrant listed enough evidence to convict him 10 times over. Even if he exposed Lucien's trafficking operation, even if he saved the women on the Pacific Horizon, the federal case against Kaylin was airtight. He was going to prison. Not as collateral damage, as the primary target. Lucien had orchestrated everything: the financial collapse, the trafficking operation, the evidence trail, to destroy Kaylin so completely that no one would believe his version of events. The nephew who went crazy, who kidnapped a civilian, who sabotaged his own empire. A perfect narrative. And Kaylin had played his role exactly as scripted. Nia stirred on the floor, opened her eyes, saw his expression. What happened? He turned the laptop toward her. She read the email, the warrant. Her face went pale. This is bad, she said. It's over. No, we can still what? Every piece of evidence we have implicates me as much as Lucien, maybe more. The feds will see a crime lord trying to frame his uncle to avoid prosecution. Then we don't go to the feds. We leak everything to the press. Force a public investigation. The press will report that a fugitive accused of human trafficking is making wild allegations against his uncle. Without corroboration, it's just noise. Nia stood, paced the cabin. Her mind was racing. There has to be something. A witness. Physical evidence. Something that proves Lucien orchestrated this. If there was, he would have destroyed it years ago. People make mistakes. Even criminals. Especially criminals who think they've won. Kaylin wanted to believe her, but the weight of the evidence crushed any hope. Lucien had spent 8 years preparing this. He'd built redundancies, covered tracks, eliminated loose ends. The only loose end left was Kaylin, and soon that would be resolved too. A sound cut through the morning silence. Engines, multiple vehicles, coming fast up the logging road toward the cabin. Kaylin's blood turned to ice. We need to move. They grabbed the laptop, the duffel bag, and ran. Out the back door into the forest. Behind them, the engines grew louder. Kaylin counted at least 4 vehicles. Maybe more. How did they find us? The answer hit him like a bullet. The wire transfer. Kaylin had stolen $75,000 from Lucien's operational account. The transaction triggered an alert. Lucien's people traced the destination account back to Victor, pressured him, broke him, and Victor gave them the meeting location, which meant Lucien knew they were in the area, knew they were planning something, had mobilized every available resource to hunt them down. Kaylin and Nia ran deeper into the forest. Branches tore at their clothes. Roots tried to trip them. Behind them, car doors slammed. Voices shouted in Russian and English. Dogs barked. They were using tracking dogs. We can't outrun them, Nia gasped. We don't have to outrun them. We just have to reach the highway. How far? 2 miles, maybe 3. They ran. Kaylin's lungs burned. His legs screamed. Nia kept pace beside him, her face twisted with effort. The sounds of pursuit grew closer. The dogs were gaining. They broke through a thicket and nearly fell into a ravine. A creek ran through the bottom, maybe 20 feet below. Steep walls, rocky terrain. Down, Kaylin said. They scrambled down the ravine wall, half sliding, half climbing. Kaylin hit the bottom first. Nia landed beside him. They splashed into the creek and started running downstream. The water was freezing. It soaked through their clothes and stole their body heat, but it would mask their scent from the dogs. They ran for 15 minutes. The ravine twisted through the forest like a scar. Behind them, the barking faded. The voices grew distant. They were gaining ground. Then the ravine opened into a clearing, and Lucien Vey stood waiting. He wasn't alone. 6 men flanked him, all armed, all positioned with clear lines of fire. Behind them, 3 black SUVs blocking the only exit. Kaylin and Nia stopped. There was nowhere left to run. Lucien smiled. He looked exactly as Kaylin remembered. Silver hair, tailored suit, eyes like polished stone. No anger, no rage, just cold satisfaction. Hello, nephew. Kaylin said nothing. Lucien's gaze shifted to Nia. And you must be the waitress who started all this. Nia Vale, former federal public defender, blacklisted for testifying against a corrupt prosecutor. Quite the resume. Nia's jaw clenched. She didn't respond. I underestimated you, Lucien continued. I assumed you were just a temp who got lucky. Turns out you're considerably more dangerous than that. Where are the women on the Pacific horizon? Nia demanded. Cargo, en route to their final destinations. Buyers are waiting. Contracts have been signed. Business will proceed as scheduled. You're trafficking human beings. I'm operating a logistics network. The product is irrelevant. Kaylin's hands curled into fists. You destroyed the syndicate, stole $200 million, framed me for crimes you committed, and you call yourself a businessman. Lucien's smile widened. I didn't destroy the syndicate. I evolved it. Your father built an empire on violence and fear. You tried to sanitize it with lawyers and real estate deals. Both approaches were inefficient. I saw an opportunity to extract maximum value while minimizing risk. By selling people. By diversifying revenue streams, drugs and weapons are commoditized markets. Low margins, high enforcement risk. Human trafficking offers superior returns with manageable exposure, especially when the infrastructure already exists. You used my ships, my routes, my authority. I used the tools available. You signed the manifests, approved the shipments. Your signature is on every document. From a legal perspective, you're the architect of the entire operation. Kaylin's vision blurred with rage. You set me up. I positioned you. There's a difference. You wanted to go legitimate. I let you. While you focused on city council meetings and real estate acquisitions, I built a parallel operation using your infrastructure. You were so busy playing businessman you never noticed what was happening in your own empire. And the financial collapse? Strategic extraction. I moved capital offshore while systematically sabotaging your revenue streams. Created the appearance of market failure while actually executing a controlled liquidation. By the time you realized something was wrong, the damage was irreversible. $200 million. Seed capital for the next phase. The syndicate you inherited is dead, but the syndicate I'm building will be exponentially more profitable, leaner, more focused, properly managed. Nia stepped forward. You won't get away with this. We have evidence, financial records, shipping manifests, testimony from Marcus Chen, everything we need to bury you. Lucien's expression didn't change. You have files on a laptop you stole from a dead man's legacy system, files that implicate my nephew more than they implicate me. Files that any prosecutor will dismiss as fabricated evidence from a fugitive trying to avoid conviction. The women on the ship will be found eventually, and investigators will trace the operation back to Kalen, his signatures, his authority, his empire. I'm just the loyal uncle trying to salvage the family business after my nephew's mental breakdown. Kalen's mind raced. Lucien had planned for everything, every contingency, every angle of attack. The evidence they'd collected was worthless. The testimony they'd gathered was compromised. Even exposing the trafficking operation would only reinforce the narrative that Kalen was the monster. They'd already lost. They just hadn't accepted it yet. Why not kill us? Kalen asked. Why this elaborate setup? You could have put a bullet in my head months ago. Because murder is crude, expensive, creates problems. Better to let the law destroy you. The federal warrant is already active. When you're arrested, you'll spend the rest of your life in a supermax cell. Your name will be synonymous with human trafficking, and I'll rebuild the empire without you casting shadows over everything I create. And Nia? Lucien glanced at her. Ms. Vale will be treated as a hostage, kidnapped by a desperate criminal, traumatized but cooperative. After a thorough debriefing, she'll be released back into obscurity, assuming she's smart enough to stay quiet. Nia's voice was cold steel. I'll testify against you. To whom? Federal prosecutors already have their villain. They won't waste resources investigating an aging businessman when they have a convicted crime lord in custody. You're a compelling witness, Ms. Vale, but without corroboration, you're just a victim repeating her kidnapper's lies. The trap was perfect, airtight, inescapable. Kalen looked at Nia. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned. She hadn't given up. Even standing in a forest surrounded by armed men with nowhere to run, she was still fighting. That resilience was the only thing keeping Kalen from collapsing. You have a choice, nephew, Lucien said. Surrender now, face trial, spend life in prison, or run. Extend this pointless chase, force me to kill you and Ms. Vale both. Either way, the outcome is the same. I win, you lose. Kalen's hand shook. Not from fear, from rage so absolute it threatened to tear him apart. 8 years. His uncle had spent 8 years planning this, poisoning the empire, turning Kalen's own decisions into weapons, transforming every attempt at redemption into proof of guilt, and Kalen had been blind to all of it. What about the women? Kalen asked quietly. What about them? The 500 people you trafficked. What happens to them? Lucien shrugged. They've already been sold, processed, distributed. Some are still alive, some aren't. It's irrelevant. Irrelevant. They were inventory, products, commodities. Their suffering is regrettable but economically necessary. The market demands certain goods. I simply supplied them. Something broke inside Kalen. Not his will, not his resolve. Something deeper. The part of him that had spent 30 years trying to be better than his father. Trying to transform violence into commerce. Trying to believe that legitimacy could erase the bloodstains. That part died. What replaced it was colder, sharper, purely functional. If he couldn't win legally, he'd win illegally. If he couldn't prove Lucien's guilt, he'd create proof impossible to ignore. If he couldn't save himself, he'd save the people who still had a chance. Kalen met his uncle's eyes. You're right. I can't beat you in court. Can't expose you to prosecutors. Can't prove anything that matters. Finally, acceptance. But I can destroy everything you built. Lucien's smile faded. What? The Pacific Horizon, the ghost ships, the entire trafficking network. I can burn it all to the ground. Force an investigation so massive you can't control it. Create evidence you can't suppress. Survivors you can't silence. You're bluffing. Am I? You taught me everything I know about strategic destruction, about cutting losses, about scorched earth when retreat isn't an option. Lucien's jaw tightened. You blow up a commercial vessel in Vancouver Harbor, you'll kill everyone on board, including the women you're trying to save. Not if we evacuate them first. You don't have time. The ship leaves in 30 hours. Then we'd better move fast. Lucien gestured to his men. They raised their weapons. 6 guns, all aimed at Kaylin and Naya. You're not going anywhere, Lucien. Mannen said. Kaylin pulled the detonator from his pocket. Everyone froze. The device was small, plastic, red trigger button. Kaylin had built it 3 hours ago using components from the burner phone and some wire from the truck's electrical system. It wasn't sophisticated, but it didn't need to be. What is that? Lucien asked. Insurance. There's 20 pounds of C4 wired to the laptop in my truck, parked half a mile from here. If I don't send a signal every 30 minutes, it detonates. If you kill me, it detonates. Either way, every piece of evidence we've collected gets uploaded to the FBI, DOJ, Interpol, and a dozen international journalists. It was a complete lie. Kaylin didn't have C4, didn't have a dead man's switch. The detonator in his hand was just plastic and wire connected to nothing. But Lucien didn't know that. His uncle's eyes narrowed, calculating, analyzing, trying to determine if Kaylin was bluffing. You're lying, Lucien said. Maybe. But are you willing to bet $200 million and your entire operation on that? Silence stretched between them. The forest held its breath. 6 guns remained aimed at Kaylin's chest. Lucien's hand rose. His men lowered their weapons. Smart choice, Kaylin said. This changes nothing. Even if you upload the files, they'll implicate you more than me. I know, but they'll also implicate you enough to trigger investigations, freeze your assets, expose your network. You'll spend years fighting charges, and even if you win, the trafficking operation will be dead. Mutually assured destruction. Exactly. Lucien's smile returned, colder than before. You've become interesting, nephew. Your father would be proud. My father would have killed you years ago. Perhaps. But he's dead, and I'm standing here. That's all that matters. Kaylin grabbed Nia's hand, started backing toward the tree line. Let them go, Lucien said to his men. Boss, let them go. They have 30 hours until that ship leaves. They'll fail. And when they do, we'll collect the pieces. Kaylin and Naya reached the trees, turned, ran. Behind them, Lucien's voice carried through the forest. I'll see you in prison, nephew, or I'll see you in hell. Either way, I'll see you soon. They ran until their lungs gave out, until their legs buckled, until the sounds of pursuit faded to nothing. Finally, they collapsed in a clearing 5 miles from where they'd started. Nia lay on the ground, gasping. Kaylin sat against a tree, his entire body shaking. She looked at him. Did you really wire the laptop with explosives? No. So you bluffed. Completely. Jesus Christ. We're still alive. That's what counts. Naya sat up. What now? Kaylin pulled out the burner phone, checked the time. 29 hours until the Pacific Horizon departed. Now we do exactly what I said. We evacuate the women. We sink the ship. We force an investigation so big Lucien can't contain it. With what resources? We have no money, no allies, no equipment. We have rage, desperation, and nothing left to lose. He stood, offered her his hand. She took it. This is insane, Nia said. Yeah, but it's the only move we have left. They started walking. No destination, just direction. Away from Lucien, toward Vancouver, toward the ship, toward a confrontation that would either save 20 lives or end them all. Behind them, the forest swallowed their tracks. Ahead, the city waited. And somewhere in that city, a ship sat loaded with human cargo, counting down the hours until it disappeared into international waters forever. They reached the outskirts of Vancouver with 18 hours left before the Pacific Horizon departed. Kaylin's truck was gone, seized or destroyed by Lucien's men. They'd walked 12 miles through forest and farmland, following back roads and staying off highways where surveillance cameras could track them. Nia's feet were bleeding inside her shoes. Kaylin's ribs ached from where he'd fallen scrambling down the ravine. Neither complained. Pain was just information now. Data to be processed and ignored. They found a payphone outside a shuttered gas station. Kaylin still had Marcus Chen's number memorized. He dialed. The kid answered on the 4th ring. Yeah? It's Vey. Silence. Then, "You're supposed to be dead. Everyone's saying Lucian's people caught you. They tried. We're still moving. What do you want?" "Access to the Pacific Horizon. Tonight. Before it leaves." "Are you insane? After what happened yesterday, security tripled. They've got armed guards on the gangway. Cameras everywhere. I can't just—" "How much?" Marcus hesitated. "What? How much money would it take for you to help us get those women off that ship?" "There's no amount of money worth dying for." "Then don't think of it as money. Think of it as doing the right thing before you run out of chances. Philosophical bullshit won't keep me alive." Kalen's voice hardened. 20 women are sitting in a container waiting to be sold for their organs. You've seen them. You know what's happening. If that ship leaves port, they disappear forever. No investigation, no rescue, just bodies in unmarked graves. The line went quiet. Kalen heard Marcus breathing, fast, shallow. The kid was terrified. "Even if I wanted to help," Marcus finally said, "I don't know how. I'm a cargo supervisor. I don't have authority to evacuate containers or override security protocols. You have access to the ship. That's enough." "Access to do what?" "Get us inside. We'll handle the rest." "The rest being what? You planning to shoot your way through a commercial port?" "We're planning to save lives. The method is still under development." Nia grabbed Kalen's arm and shook her head. Her expression said this was a mistake. Marcus was too scared, too compromised. He'd fold under pressure. But Kalen didn't have other options. "I need an answer," Kalen said into the phone. Marcus exhaled slowly. "There's a shift change at 2 a.m., security rotation. 10-minute gap where the dock is understaffed. If you're going to do something stupid, that's your window." "Will you be there?" "I'll leave the cargo bay access unlocked. After that, you're on your own." "That's all I'm asking." "No. What you're asking is for me to commit career suicide and probably actual suicide, but I'll do it anyway because I can't sleep knowing I did nothing." The line went dead. Kalen hung up and turned to Naya. "We're in. We have no plan, no equipment, no backup. We have 4 hours to fix that." They walked into the city. Vancouver at night was a maze of neon and rain-slick streets. Tourists crowded the waterfront. Restaurants spilled light onto sidewalks. Nobody looked twice at two exhausted people in dirty clothes. The city swallowed them into its anonymity. Kalen led them to an industrial district near the port. Warehouses and shipping offices lined the streets. He stopped outside a building with a faded sign. Chen and Associates Import/Export. "Who's Chen?" Nia asked. "Marcus's father, retired shipping inspector. Knows every regulation, every loophole, every dirty trick in maritime logistics." "Will he help us?" "He owes me. 10 years ago I made a customs violation disappear, saved his business. He said if I ever needed a favor I should ask." "You're calling in a decade-old debt?" "I'm calling in everything I have left." They entered through a side door. The office was dark except for a single light in the back. An older man sat at a desk surrounded by paperwork. He looked up when they entered. Recognition flickered across his face. "Kalen Vey. Didn't expect to see you again." "I need help, Mr. Chen." "I heard you're wanted for trafficking. Federal warrant. $50,000 bounty. I'm wanted for crimes my uncle committed, but if I explain that, we'll waste time neither of us has." Mr. Chen leaned back in his chair. His eyes were sharp, calculating. "My son called me 2 hours ago. Said he's helping you do something that'll either save lives or get him killed. He wouldn't tell me which. Both, probably." "That's not reassuring." Kalen stepped forward. "There are 20 women locked in a container on the Pacific Horizon. Human trafficking. They'll be dead or worse within 48 hours. I'm going to get them out. Your son is helping. I'm asking you to help, too. What do you need?" "Shipping manifests, security schedules, dock access codes. Anything that gives us an advantage." Mr. Chen stared at him for a long moment. Then he opened a drawer and pulled out a stack of documents. "The Pacific Horizon is registered under a Liberian flag. Crew of 15. Scheduled departure at 4 a.m. Security detail includes 6 armed guards employed by Hightower Maritime Solutions. They rotate every 4 hours." He spread the documents across the desk. Nia leaned in, scanning them. "The cargo manifest lists 83 containers," Mr. Chen continued. "Most are legitimate. Electronics, textiles, machinery, but 6 containers are flagged for temperature-controlled transport. Those are your targets." How do we identify which container holds the women? Nia asked. Container numbers are sequential. The last 6 loaded will be the first 6 offloaded. They'll be positioned on the upper deck, accessible from the main cargo bay. Kaylin memorized the container numbers. What about evacuation? You'll need transport, vehicles to move 20 people fast, medical support for anyone injured or drugged, and a destination where they can't be intercepted. Can you provide any of that? Mr. Chen pulled out his phone, made 3 calls, spoke in Cantonese. When he finished, he looked at Kaylin. I have 2 cargo vans waiting 3 blocks from the port. Medical team on standby at a private clinic in Richmond. They'll treat the women, no questions asked. After that, you're responsible for getting them to safety. How much do I owe you? You already paid, 10 years ago. He paused. But if my son dies because of this, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you regret it. Understood. They left the office with documents, access codes, and a slim margin of hope. Outside, the rain had intensified. Water streamed down gutters and pooled in the streets. Nia pulled her jacket tighter. We're really doing this, she said. Yeah. We're going to die. Probably. And you're okay with that? Kaylin stopped walking, turned to face her. 550 people have already been trafficked because I was too blind to see what my uncle was doing. I can't fix that. Can't undo it. But I can stop it from happening to 20 more. If that costs my life, it's the cheapest price I'll ever pay. Nia's eyes glistened. Rain or tears? Maybe both. For what it's worth, I don't think you're a monster. What am I? Someone who's finally fighting for something bigger than survival. They walked the rest of the way to the port in silence. At 1:45 a.m., they reached the perimeter fence. The Pacific horizon loomed in the distance, a massive shadow against the city lights. Cargo cranes towered overhead like metal giants. The dock was quiet. Most workers had gone home. Only security and skeleton crew remained. Kaylin and Nia crouched behind a stack of shipping containers. Waited. Watched. At 1:58 a.m., the security team began their shift change. 6 guards walked toward the main gate. The replacement team hadn't arrived yet. 10-minute gap. Marcus had been right. Kaylin signaled to Nia. They moved. They crossed open ground in 30 seconds, reached the cargo bay access door. It was unlocked, just as Marcus promised. They slipped inside. The interior of the ship was a cathedral of steel and shadows. Rows of containers stretched in every direction. Emergency lighting cast everything in harsh white. Somewhere above them, footsteps echoed, crew members moving through the corridors. Nia pulled out the manifest. Container TK-4457, upper deck, east side. They climbed a metal staircase. The ship creaked around them, groaning metal, shifting cargo, the sound of something massive preparing to move. They reached the upper deck. Found the container. Same number they'd opened yesterday. Kaylin approached. The lock had been replaced. Industrial grade. Impossible to break without tools. Now what? Nia whispered. Kaylin pulled out a crowbar he'd taken from Mr. Chen's office. Started prying at the lock mechanism. Metal shrieked against metal. The sound echoed through the cargo hold. Quiet, Nia hissed. Can't be done quietly. He braced his weight against the crowbar. Pulled. The lock resisted. He pulled harder. His shoulder screamed in protest. The lock held. Footsteps approached. Fast. Multiple people. Security, Nia said. Kaylin abandoned the crowbar and grabbed Nia's hand. They ran. Ducked between containers. Hid in the shadows. 3 guards appeared on the upper deck. Flashlights swept the area. One of them spotted the crowbar on the ground. Someone's here, he said into his radio. Lock down the ship, came the response. Nobody leaves. Alarm screamed to life. Red emergency lights flooded the cargo hold. The guards fanned out, searching systematically. Kaylin and Nia pressed against the cold steel of a container. Trapped. The guards were closing in, 2 from the left, 1 from the right. No exit. Kaylin's mind raced. They couldn't fight, couldn't run, couldn't hide much longer. The guard to their right passed within 10 feet. His flashlight beam swept past their position. Kaylin held his breath. Nia's hand squeezed his so hard it hurt. The guard moved on. They had maybe 2 minutes before the search pattern doubled back. Nia pointed to a ventilation shaft in the ceiling. Narrow. Maybe 18 inches wide. Kaylin shook his head. Too small. She glared at him and started climbing before he could stop her. She pulled herself up into the shaft. Disappeared. Kalen followed. It was a tight fit. His shoulders barely cleared the opening. He pulled himself inside and crawled forward. The metal was freezing, his breath condensed in the narrow space. Behind them, guards swept the area where they'd been hiding, found nothing, moved on. Kalen and Naya crawled through the ventilation system. It ran the length of the ship. They could hear everything. Radio chatter, footsteps, doors slamming. "They know we're here," Nia whispered. "They know someone's here. They don't know why." "What's the difference?" "The difference is they're looking for saboteurs, not rescuers. They'll secure the cargo and wait for police." "That doesn't help us get the women out." Kalen stopped crawling. Thought. The ship was locked down. Guards everywhere. The container was sealed. They had no tools, no plan, no options. Except one. "We don't get them out," Kalen said. "We bring help to them." "What?" "We can't evacuate 20 women through a locked-down port, but we can force the authorities to do it for us." "How?" "We trigger an emergency that requires immediate evacuation. Something so catastrophic they have to open every container and move everyone off the ship." Naya stared at him. "You want to sink it?" "Not yet, just threaten to. Force them to treat this as a maritime disaster. They'll evacuate all cargo, including the containers we can't open. We don't have explosives." "We don't need explosives. We just need them to think we do." They crawled to a junction where the ventilation shaft overlooked the engine room. Below, 2 crew members monitored gauges and instruments. The heart of the ship. Massive turbines, fuel lines, electrical systems. Kalen studied the layout. Identified the fuel control panel. The emergency shutdown protocols. The alarm system. "Can you hack that?" he asked Nia. She looked at the control panel. "From here? No, I'd need physical access." "Can you create a false emergency?" "Like what?" "A fire. Fuel leak. Structural failure. Anything that triggers a mandatory evacuation protocol." Nia thought about it. "If I can access the alarm system, I can trigger a hazmat warning. Toxic gas leak. That would force them to evacuate immediately." "Do it." They crawled to another section of the shaft, found a maintenance access panel overlooking a corridor. Kalen pried it open, dropped down into the hallway. Nia followed. The alarm control panel was mounted on the wall, locked behind a plexiglass cover. Kalen smashed it with his elbow. Glass shattered. He ignored the pain and pulled the panel open. Nia's fingers moved across the wiring. She bypassed the authentication system, accessed the emergency protocols, found the hazmat alert. "This triggers a level 1 evacuation," she said. "Everyone off the ship, all cargo inspected. Port Authority responds within minutes." "Do it!" She activated the alarm. Sirens exploded through the ship, flashing yellow lights. An automated voice announced a hazardous material leak in the engine room. All personnel ordered to evacuate immediately. Chaos erupted. Crew members ran for the exits. Guards abandoned their posts. The systematic search dissolved into panicked retreat. Within 3 minutes, the Pacific horizon was empty except for Kalen and Naya. They ran back to the upper deck. The container with the women stood exactly where they'd left it, still locked, still sealed. But now Port Authority was swarming the dock. Fire trucks, hazmat teams, police, harbor patrol. Dozens of responders moving with practiced efficiency. A hazmat team boarded the ship. They began inspecting containers, verifying cargo, looking for the source of the alleged leak. When they reached container TK4457, they found it locked. Unusual. Protocol required all containers to be accessible for inspection. They cut the lock, opened the doors, and found 20 women chained inside. The scene that followed was controlled chaos. Paramedics rushed aboard. Police secured the area. News helicopters appeared overhead. Within 20 minutes, the entire port was flooded with emergency responders. The women were evacuated, rushed to ambulances, given medical care, questioned by police. Kalen and Nia watched from the ventilation shaft. They couldn't leave yet. The ship was surrounded, every exit monitored, but the women were safe. That was all that mattered. "We did it," Nia whispered. "We saved 20. There are hundreds more." "So we do it again and again, until there's no one left to save." Kalen looked at her. This woman who'd been serving coffee a week ago, who'd accidentally saved his life, who'd walked into hell beside him without hesitation. "Why are you still here?" he asked. "What?" "You could have walked away, gone to the feds, Testified against me. Saved yourself. Why didn't you? Nia was quiet for a moment. Because walking away would have meant living with the knowledge that I could have stopped this and chose not to. I've already lost everything once. I'm not losing myself too. Below, police were questioning the crew. Security footage was being reviewed. Someone would connect the false alarm to the container discovery. Questions would be asked. Investigations launched. And eventually, all trails would lead back to Lucien Vey. Kaylin's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You just declared war. Hope you're ready for what comes next. Lucien. Kaylin typed back. I've been ready my whole life. You just didn't notice. The response came immediately. Come to Black Harbor Tower. Tonight. Alone. Let's finish this. Nia read the message over his shoulder. It's a trap. Obviously. You're not actually going. I have to. This ends where it started. He'll kill you. Maybe. But I'll take him with me. That's not a plan. That's suicide. Kaylin pocketed the phone. I'm not asking you to come. Good. Because I'm coming anyway. Nia, don't. We've been through too much for you to pull the noble sacrifice routine now. If you're walking into hell, I'm walking beside you. That's not negotiable. They waited another hour before the port activity died down enough for them to slip away. They climbed down from the ship using cargo lines, blended into the crowd of emergency responders, walked away from the Pacific horizon as police continued documenting evidence that would eventually destroy Lucien's operation. The two cargo vans Mr. Chen had arranged were exactly where he'd said they'd be. Keys under the driver's seat. Kaylin started the engine. Nia climbed into the passenger side. Where's Black Harbor Tower? She asked. Downtown Seattle, Syndicate headquarters. 40 floors. Lucien will be on the top level. His office overlooks the city. Security? Extensive. Armed guards, surveillance, controlled access to every floor. So we can't just walk in? No, but I know a way. They drove through the night, crossed the border using the same footpath they'd used before. Reached Seattle as dawn broke gray and cold over Puget Sound. Black Harbor Tower rose above the skyline like a monument to corruption, glass and steel. 40 stories of criminal enterprise disguised as legitimate business. Kaylin parked 6 blocks away, checked his weapons. 2 handguns. Limited ammunition. Not enough for a sustained firefight, but enough for what needed to be done. Nia loaded her weapon. Her hands were steady now. Fear had burned away. What remained was cold determination. There's a service entrance on the east side, Kaylin said. Maintenance crews use it. Less security. We can reach the executive floors through the utility stairwell. And then? Then we confront my uncle. Get him to confess everything on record. Force him to give us access to the financial records that prove he orchestrated the trafficking operation. He'll never confess. He will if the alternative is worse. What's worse than federal prison? Kaylin's smile was cold. Losing everything he stole, every dollar, every asset, every piece of the empire he built on human suffering. I'll burn it all before I let him keep it. They approached the tower. The service entrance was exactly where Kaylin remembered. Security camera above the door. He knew the blind spot. They slipped through without triggering alerts. Inside, the building was quiet. Early morning, skeleton staff. Most employees wouldn't arrive for another 2 hours. They climbed the utility stairwell, 40 floors. Kaylin's legs burned. His lungs screamed. Nia kept pace beside him. Neither spoke, just climbed. They reached the 40th floor. Kaylin checked the hallway through the stairwell door. Empty. He signaled to Nia. They moved. The executive suite was at the end of the corridor. Double doors. Mahogany and brass. The same doors Kaylin had walked through 1,000 times. He pushed them open. Lucien sat behind his desk, exactly as Kaylin had expected. No guards, no weapons visible. Just an old man in an expensive suit waiting for his nephew. You came, Lucien's Isien said. You knew I would. Of course, you're predictable. Always have been. Kaylin and Nia stepped inside. The doors closed behind them. Automatic locks engaged. The windows overlooked the city. 40 stories of empty air between them and the ground. The women from the Pacific horizon are in federal custody, Kaylin said. Their testimony will connect the trafficking operation directly to you. Doubtful. The operation was structured specifically to insulate me. The women never saw me, never heard my name, can't identify me. Their testimony proves trafficking occurred, not that I orchestrated it. The financial records implicate you, your signatures, your accounts, your authority. I'm just the uncle trying to salvage the family business. Kalen pulled out his gun, aimed it at Lucian's chest. His uncle didn't flinch. Shoot me, Lucian said calmly. Pull the trigger. End this. Not yet. First, you're going to transfer every dollar you stole back to the syndicate's accounts. Then you're going to write a full confession detailing the trafficking operation. Or what? Or I destroy the offshore accounts, crash the shell corporations, expose every asset you've hidden. You'll spend the rest of your life poor and hunted. Lucian smiled. You don't have access to those accounts. Actually, I do. Kalen pulled out the USB drive. My father gave me override codes, master keys to the entire financial infrastructure, every account, every corporation, every hidden asset. I can erase everything you've built with a single command. For the first time, something flickered in Lucien's eyes. Not fear. Calculation. You're bluffing. Try me. Nia moved to the desk, pulled out the laptop, inserted the USB drive, screens populated with financial data, account balances, corporate structures, $200 million spread across 7 countries. Transfer the money, Kalen said. Now. Lucien's jaw tightened. If you erase those accounts, you erase the only leverage you have against me. I don't need leverage. I need justice. And if I can't get it legally, I'll settle for destroying everything you stole. You'll go to prison. I'm already going to prison. The federal warrant guarantees that. But at least I'll go knowing you lost. Silence stretched between them. The city sprawled below, indifferent, eternal. Finally, Lucian reached for the keyboard, and that's when the windows exploded. Glass shattered inward. Ropes dropped from the roof. 6 men rappelled through the broken windows, armed, masked, moving with military precision. Kalen spun, fired, took down one attacker before the others opened fire. Bullets tore through the office, wood splintered, plaster exploded. Nia dove behind the desk, returned fire, dropped another attacker. Kalen emptied his magazine, reloaded. The attackers kept coming. They weren't trying to kill, they were trying to capture. One of them grabbed Kalen from behind, locked his arms. Kalen drove his elbow backward, connected with ribs. The attacker grunted but held on. Another grabbed Nia. She fought, kicked, bit. They forced her to the ground. Lucien stood behind his desk, watching, untouched. Enough, he said. The attackers stopped, held Kalen and Nia immobilized. Lucien walked around the desk, picked up the laptop, ejected the USB drive, pocketed it. Did you really think I'd let you walk into my headquarters without preparation? He asked. I've been watching you since you entered the building, waiting for you to make your move. Kalen struggled. The attacker's grip was iron. You were right about one thing, Lucien continued. This does end where it started, but not the way you imagined. He pulled out a phone, made a call. Bring him up. 60 seconds later, the office doors opened. Marcus Chen stumbled inside. His face was bruised. Blood trickled from his nose. 2 men held him upright. No, Nia whispered. Lucien smiled. Your inside man. Very resourceful. Unfortunately, his father's cooperation made him easy to locate. We picked him up 3 hours ago. Marcus looked at Kalen. His eyes were apologetic, terrified. I'm sorry, Marcus said. They grabbed my father, said they'd kill him if I didn't. Lucien shot him. The sound was deafening. Marcus collapsed. Blood spread across the carpet. Nia screamed, Kalen's vision blurred with rage so absolute he couldn't see, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but fight against the arms holding him. Loose ends, Lucien said calmly. He turned to his men. Take them to the roof. Make it look like a murder-suicide. The fugitive crime lord killed his hostage before jumping to his death. Tragic. Fitting. The attackers dragged Kalen and Nia toward the door. Kalen fought. It was useless. They were trained, professional. He was exhausted. They reached the roof. Wind screamed across the empty expanse. The city stretched in every direction. 40 stories of nothing but air and concrete below. One of the attackers forced Kalen to his knees at the edge, Nia beside him. Her face was streaked with tears and fury. Any last words? The attacker asked. Kalen looked at Nia. I'm sorry I got you killed. I'm not, she said. I'd rather die fighting monsters than live serving them coffee. The attacker raised his gun. and the roof access door exploded open. Federal agents poured through, dozens of them, FBI, DEA, Homeland Security, all armed, all shouting commands. The attackers froze. "Drop your weapons! Federal agents!" Confusion erupted. Lucian's men looked at each other, calculating. The lead attacker made his decision and dropped his gun. The others followed. Within 30 seconds, all 6 were on the ground in handcuffs. An agent approached Kalen, helped him to his feet. "Kalen Vey?" "Yeah." "You're under arrest, but first we need to know, where's Lucian Vey?" Kalen's blood turned cold. He looked back at the roof access door, at the agents securing the scene, at the chaos unfolding around him. Lucian wasn't there. His uncle had slipped away while his men created a distraction. "He's gone," Kalen said. The agent swore, grabbed his radio. "All units, suspect Lucian Vey is mobile inside the building. Lock it down. Nobody leaves." But Kalen knew it was too late. His uncle was a ghost, and ghosts didn't get caught. They vanished. The federal agents swept through Black Harbor Tower like a flood consuming everything in its path. Every floor, every office, every hidden corner where Lucian Vey might be hiding. They found nothing. Security footage showed him leaving his office 30 seconds before the roof arrest began, descending through a private elevator that terminated in the parking garage. From there, the trail went cold. Kalen sat in a conference room on the 20th floor with his wrists zip-tied to a metal chair. Nia was 3 doors down, undergoing the same interrogation. Through the glass wall, he could see agents moving with purpose. Phones ringing, radios crackling, the machinery of federal law enforcement grinding into motion. Special Agent Sarah Reeves sat across from him, mid-40s, sharp eyes, the kind of cop who'd seen every lie and heard every excuse. She set a folder on the table and opened it. Kalen Vey, 34 years old, heir to the Black Harbor Syndicate. Wanted for racketeering, money laundering, human trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other charges that'll keep you in prison until you're 90. She paused. "Want to tell me why we shouldn't process you right now and let a jury sort it out?" "Because I didn't commit those crimes. My uncle did. I was framed. That's what they all say. Ask the women we saved from the Pacific Horizon. Ask Marcus Chen's father. Ask Nia Vale. They'll tell you the same thing. Ms. Vale is currently claiming you kidnapped her, that you've been holding her hostage for the past week, that she helped you under duress." Kalen's chest tightened. "That's not true." "Then why would she say it?" "Because she's protecting herself, which is smart. I don't blame her." Agent Reeves leaned back. "Here's what I know. 23 women were rescued from a container on a commercial vessel. Medical examinations confirmed they were being trafficked. Financial records seized from your shipping company show systematic money laundering and operational codes consistent with human smuggling. Your signature appears on dozens of documents authorizing those shipments. I signed those documents without knowing what was inside the containers. Lucian buried the trafficking operation inside legitimate cargo. I was blind to it. Ignorance isn't a legal defense. I'm not claiming ignorance. I'm claiming I was used. My authority was weaponized against me. By your uncle." "Yes. Who conveniently disappeared while we were arresting you. He planned it that way. He spent 8 years setting this up, framing me, stealing from the syndicate, building evidence that makes me look guilty while he walks away clean." Agent Reeves pulled out a document. "This is a federal warrant issued 3 days ago. It lists you as the primary suspect in a trafficking operation spanning 7 countries. The evidence is extensive, comprehensive. It didn't appear overnight. Because Lucian spent years building it. Or because you're guilty." Kalen met her eyes. "If I'm guilty, why did I risk everything to save those women? Why expose the operation? Why hand you evidence that incriminates me? Maybe you panicked. Maybe you realized we were closing in and tried to pin it on someone else. Then why not run? I had resources, money, connections. I could have disappeared to a country with no extradition treaty. Instead, I stayed, fought, saved lives. Does that sound like someone trying to escape justice?" Agent Reeves was quiet. She tapped her pen against the folder, thinking, calculating. "The financial records you uploaded," she finally said, "the ones documenting your uncle's theft. Where did you get them?" "My father's legacy system. He kept encrypted backups of everything, gave me access before he died." "And you never looked at them until now?" "I trusted my uncle to handle the parts of the business I didn't want to see. That was my mistake. A mistake that cost 550 lives. The words hit like bullets. Kaylin's throat tightened. I know. Knowing doesn't bring them back. No, but stopping the next shipment does. And the one after that. And every operation Lucian built. That's why I'm here instead of running. Because I'd rather spend life in prison knowing I stopped him than spend it free knowing I didn't. Agent Reeves stared at him for a long moment. Then she closed the folder. You're still under arrest. The evidence against you is substantial. But if you cooperate, full testimony, complete disclosure, assistance in locating your uncle, the U.S. attorney might consider reducing charges. I'll tell you everything I know, but I want something in return. You're not in a position to negotiate. Nia Vale walks. No charges. No consequences. She saved those women as much as I did. Probably more. She doesn't deserve to be punished for doing the right thing. She helped you evade federal custody. She helped me save lives. There's a difference. Agent Reeves stood. I'll relay your request. No promises. She left. Kaylin sat alone in the conference room staring at his reflection in the glass wall. He looked like hell. Bruised, exhausted, bleeding from a dozen small cuts. The face staring back at him belonged to someone who'd walked through fire and barely survived. 3 hours passed. Agents came and went, took his statement, recorded every detail. Kaylin told them everything. The financial collapse, the trafficking operation, the ghost ships, Lucien's theft, the confrontation at the cabin, the rescue at the port, all of it. When he finished, it was early afternoon. Gray light filtered through the windows. Seattle sprawled below, indifferent to the carnage unfolding inside one of its towers. Agent Reeves returned. The U.S. attorney reviewed your testimony. In exchange for full cooperation, including assistance in apprehending Lucian Vey, they're willing to reduce charges to conspiracy and accessory. You're looking at 20 years instead of life. With good behavior, maybe 15. And Nia? All charges dropped. She's free to go. Kaylin exhaled slowly. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank the 23 women whose testimony corroborates your version of events. Without them, you'd be looking at supermax confinement. Can I see her? Nia? 5 minutes. Then we transport you to federal detention. They brought Nia to the conference room. She looked as exhausted as Kaylin felt. Her clothes were torn, her hands bandaged, but her eyes were still sharp, still fighting. The agents left them alone. You told them I kidnapped you, Kaylin said. I had to. They were going to charge me with aiding a fugitive, conspiracy, maybe more. Claiming duress was the only way out. I don't blame you. You should. I lied about you to save myself. You survived. That's what matters. Nia sat down across from him. They're letting me go. All charges dropped. I know. I made sure of it. Why? Because you didn't sign those manifests. Didn't build that empire. Didn't ignore the warning signs for 30 years. I did. You just got caught in the blast radius. We both got caught. We both fought. That makes us equal. No, it makes you a victim who became a hero. There's a difference. Nia's eyes glistened. What happens to you? 20 years in federal prison, maybe 15 with good behavior. And Lucien? He's in the wind. But the feds will find him eventually. They always do. When they do, his entire operation collapses. The trafficking network, the offshore accounts. Everything. That's not justice. That's just damage control. Sometimes damage control is the best you get. They sat in silence. The city hummed beyond the glass, people living their lives, unaware of the war that had just been fought in the shadows. I'm sorry, Kaylin said. For what? For dragging you into this. For ruining your life. For... Stop. Nia leaned forward. You didn't drag me. I chose to stay. Chose to fight. Chose to risk everything because it was the right thing to do. Nobody forced me. Not you. Not circumstances. I made my own choices. And look where it got you. Blacklisted twice, traumatized, probably unemployable. And alive. Those women are alive. Marcus Chen's father is alive. That counts for something. Does it? It has to. Otherwise, what's the point? An agent knocked on the door. Time's up? Nia stood, Kaylin stood. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Two people who'd survived hell together and would never see each other again. What will you do? Kaylin asked. Testify. Help the feds dismantle what's left of the trafficking network, then disappear. New name, new city, new life. Sounds lonely. Sounds familiar. She paused. What about you? Prison, testimony, penance. Maybe in 15 years I'll get out and figure out what comes next. 15 years is a long time. I've got nothing but time now. Nia reached out, touched his hand. Her fingers were warm against his skin. Thank you, she said, for not being the monster everyone thought you were. I was a monster, just a different kind. No, monsters don't save people. They destroy them. You saved 23 lives. That's not monstrous. That's human. The agent opened the door. Ms. Vale, we need to finish your paperwork. Nia squeezed Kaylin's hand once, then let go. She walked out of the conference room without looking back. Kaylin watched her disappear down the hallway, the last person who'd believed in him when no one else did. Then the door closed, and he was alone. 3 weeks later, Kaylin sat in a federal courtroom in Seattle. His attorney, a public defender named Morrison, who looked barely old enough to vote, shuffled papers beside him. The prosecutor laid out the charges: conspiracy, accessory to human trafficking, money laundering, obstruction of justice. The evidence was overwhelming. Even with Kaylin's cooperation, the case was airtight. His signatures, his authority, his empire. The judge asked if he had anything to say before sentencing. Kaylin stood. I spent 30 years trying to be better than my father, trying to transform a criminal empire into something legitimate, something respectable. I thought if I wore the right suits and hired the right lawyers and made the right political donations, I could erase the blood that built the syndicate. I was wrong. You can't sanitize evil. You can only enable it or fight it. I enabled it, and 550 people suffered because of my blindness. I can't undo that, can't bring them back, can't apologize enough to make it right. All I can do is accept responsibility, help dismantle what's left of the organization, and spend whatever time I have left trying to stop the next predator from building what my uncle built. I know that doesn't fix anything, but it's all I have to offer. The courtroom was silent. The judge reviewed her notes. Mr. Vey, your cooperation has been noted. Your testimony directly led to the arrest of 17 individuals involved in human trafficking operations across 4 countries. The victims you helped rescue have all received medical care and are currently under federal protection. That weighs in your favor. However, your role in enabling these crimes, even unknowingly, cannot be overlooked. The court sentences you to 18 years in federal prison, eligible for parole in 12. Bailiff, remand the defendant into custody. Kaylin nodded. He'd expected worse. They led him out of the courtroom in handcuffs, past reporters, past cameras, past faces he didn't recognize, into a transport van, through the streets of Seattle toward a federal detention center where he'd wait for transfer to a permanent facility. The city passed outside the window. Rain streaked the glass. The skyline disappeared behind gray clouds. Kaylin closed his eyes. For the first time in weeks, he felt something close to peace. 6 months passed. Kaylin adjusted to prison the way people adjust to any catastrophe. Slowly, painfully, one day at a time. The federal facility in Oregon was clean, orderly, nothing like the violent chaos of state prisons. Most inmates were white-collar criminals, fraudsters, embezzlers, a few drug traffickers, nobody particularly dangerous. He worked in the library, shelving books, helping inmates with legal research. It was quiet work, solitary. Exactly what he needed. Every 2 weeks, Agent Reeves visited. She brought updates on the investigation. Lucien was still missing. Interpol had issued warrants. Financial accounts were being frozen. The trafficking network was collapsing piece by piece. But Lucien himself remained a ghost. He'll surface eventually, Reeves said during one visit. Men like him can't stay hidden forever. They need control, power. Eventually, he'll try to rebuild. When he does, we'll be waiting. And if he doesn't, then he spends the rest of his life in hiding. No empire, no money, no legacy. That's a different kind of prison. Kaylin didn't find much comfort in that, but he accepted it. On a Tuesday morning, 8 months into his sentence, a guard escorted Kaylin to the visitor's room. He wasn't expecting anyone. Agent Reeves wasn't due for another week. His attorney only came when there was paperwork to sign. He entered the room and stopped. Nia Vale sat at one of the tables. She looked different. Hair shorter, new clothes, healthier. like someone who'd spent months recovering from trauma and was finally on the other side. Kaylin sat down across from her. They didn't touch. Prison rules prohibited physical contact. Surprised? Naya asked. Yeah, how did you find me? I have friends in the FBI. They owed me a favor after I testified in 3 trafficking cases. You testified? 17 times. U.S. attorneys' offices across 6 states. I helped build cases against everyone involved in Lucian's network. Buyers, transporters, facilitators, all of them. That must have been hard. It was necessary. Those women deserve justice. I wasn't going to let them be erased. Kaylin studied her face. The sharp edges had softened. The anger had cooled into something steadier. Determination. Purpose. What are you doing now? He asked. Working for a nonprofit that helps trafficking survivors rebuild their lives. Legal advocacy, financial assistance, housing. It's not much, but it's something. Sounds like you found your way back to the law. I've found my way back to what matters. The law is just a tool. What you do with it is what counts. Why are you here, Nia? She pulled an envelope from her bag, set it on the table between them. I wanted you to see this. Kaylin opened the envelope. Inside, a photograph. 23 women standing together, smiling, alive, healthy. Behind them, a banner read Survivors Gala, Vancouver, 2026. They wanted me to thank you, Nia said. The women from the Pacific Horizon. They're all safe now, new identities, trauma counseling. Some are reuniting with families, others are starting over. But they're alive, because of what we did. Kaylin's throat tightened. He stared at the photograph. Faces he'd only seen in darkness, eyes that had been empty with despair. Now they were smiling. I don't deserve their thanks. You're right, you don't. But they're giving it anyway, because they understand something you're still learning. People aren't defined by their worst decisions. They're defined by what they do after those decisions destroy everything. What did I do after? You saved them. You destroyed the operation. You accepted responsibility. That doesn't erase what came before, but it changes what comes next. Kaylin set down the photograph. What comes next is 12 more years in here. And then what? I don't know. Maybe it's time to figure it out. She reached into her bag again, pulled out a book, slid it across the table. The Architecture of Redemption, Rebuilding After Catastrophic Failure. Light reading, Kaylin said. Consider it homework. When you get out, the world isn't going to care about your excuses. It's going to care about what you build. Start planning now. Why do you care what happens to me? Nia met his eyes. Because we walked through hell together. Because you didn't abandon me when you could have. Because you chose to save lives instead of yourself. That's rare. Worth preserving. A guard announced visiting hours were ending. Nia stood, Kaylin stood. Will you come back? He asked. Maybe, if you're working on that homework. And if I'm not, then I'll assume you've given up, and I'll stop wasting my time. She turned to leave, stopped, looked back. Kaylin? Yeah? You were right. Damage control is sometimes the best you get. But it's not the end, it's the foundation. What you build on top of it is up to you. She left. Kaylin watched her walk away for the second time. This time, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a door left slightly open. He returned to his cell, opened the book, started reading. 2 years passed. The trafficking network that Lucien had built was completely dismantled. 19 convictions, 43 victims rescued, financial assets seized across 7 countries. The Black Harbor Syndicate no longer existed. The empire that had defined Kaylin's family for 3 generations was erased from existence. Lucien Vey was never found. Interpol reports suggested he died in a border skirmish in South America. Others claimed he'd been assassinated by former partners. Some believed he was still alive somewhere, hiding under a new name, stripped of everything he'd stolen. Kaylin didn't know which version was true. He decided he didn't care. What mattered was the network was dead. The operations were ended. The people who'd suffered had a chance to heal, and Kaylin was learning what came next. He finished 2 degrees through the prison education program. Business administration, nonprofit management, started mentoring younger inmates, taught financial literacy, helped people plan for life after release. Nia visited every 3 months, sometimes more. They talked about her work, his progress, the survivors they'd saved. She never mentioned anything romantic, never crossed boundaries, just showed up, consistently, proving through presence what words couldn't. In his 4th year of incarceration, Kalen received a letter from Agent Reeves. Mr. Vey wanted to update you on the final results of the investigation. The trafficking network you helped expose has been completely neutralized. We've rescued an additional 127 victims from operations connected to your uncle's infrastructure. Financial seizures totaled $847 million across international accounts. 17 countries have issued warrants for individuals involved in the network. Your testimony was instrumental in these outcomes. While this doesn't change your sentence, I wanted you to know your cooperation saved lives. That matters. Also, thought you'd want to know. We found your uncle, or what was left of him. Dental records confirmed his identity. He died in a firefight with cartel members in Colombia 6 months ago. Apparently, he tried to rebuild his operation using their territory. They didn't appreciate the competition. Justice isn't always clean, but sometimes it's efficient. Best of luck with your parole hearing next year. S.R. Kalen read the letter 3 times, felt nothing, no satisfaction, no relief. Just acknowledgement that a chapter had closed. Lucien Vey was dead. The empire was destroyed. The victims were saved, and Kalen was still alive. That had to mean something. His parole hearing came in year 12. The board reviewed his record, his testimony, his education, his rehabilitation efforts. They asked what he planned to do after release. I'm going to work with trafficking survivors, Kalen said. Help them rebuild, navigate legal systems, access resources. I spent 30 years enabling the system that destroyed them. I'll spend whatever time I have left trying to repair that damage. That's ambitious. It's necessary. 3 weeks later, the decision came. Parole granted. Release date, 60 days. When the day came, Kalen walked out of the federal facility carrying a single box. His books, his notes, a photograph of 23 women smiling at a survivor's gala. Nia was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against a car, same sharp eyes, same determined expression. Took you long enough, she said. Had some things to finish. You ready? For what? For what comes next? We've got a lot of work to do. 17 survivors need legal assistance, 8 need housing, 3 need job placement, and there's a trafficking ring operating out of Portland that needs exposure. Kalen smiled. We? You think I'm letting you do this alone? After everything? No. We're partners now. You provide the expertise, I provide the legal framework. Together we build something that actually helps people. I'm a convicted felon. Nobody's going to hire me. Good thing we're not asking permission. We're starting our own organization. Already filed the nonprofit paperwork. Just need a co-founder willing to work 80-hour weeks for no pay. Sounds terrible. Sounds perfect. They got in the car, drove away from the prison, toward Seattle, toward the city where everything had collapsed, where an empire had burned, where 2 people had walked into hell and somehow survived. The skyline appeared in the distance. Same glass towers, same gray sky, same indifferent city, but different people. What do we call it? Kalen asked. The organization? Naya thought about it. Second Harbor. Why? Because the first harbor was built on corruption. This one's built on redemption, clean slate, new foundation, everything the Black Harbor Syndicate should have been, but wasn't. That's a lot of pressure. Good. We work better under pressure. They drove through Seattle toward an office Nia had rented in a building that used to house syndicate operations. Reclaimed space. Repurposed. In the passenger seat, Kalen looked at his reflection in the side mirror. The face staring back was older, scarred, tired, but not broken. 12 years in prison hadn't destroyed him. It had rebuilt him, stripped away the pretensions, the excuses, the willful blindness. What remained was raw, honest, functional. Someone who'd caused unspeakable harm and spent every day since trying to repair it. That wasn't redemption, but it was a start. That night, they sat in the empty office surrounded by boxes of case files, survivor testimonies, legal documents, the architecture of a new organization built on the ruins of an old empire. We're never going to save everyone, Nia said. I know. Some cases will lose, some survivors won't make it, some predators will escape justice. I know that too. So why do this? Kalen looked at the photograph of the 23 women, still taped to his box of belongings, still smiling. Because the alternative is giving up. And I've spent too long learning how to fight to quit now. Nia nodded. Then let's get to work. They worked through the night, building case files, drafting legal strategies, reaching out to survivors who needed help. The office filled with the sound of keyboards clicking, papers rustling, phones ringing. Dawn broke gray and cold over Seattle. The city woke slowly. People started their days, traffic filled the streets. Life continued with relentless momentum. In a small office on the 20th floor of a reclaimed building, two people who'd survived catastrophe together were building something new. Not an empire, not a dynasty. Just a chance. For survivors to rebuild, for justice to be served, for people who'd been treated as inventory to be seen as human again. It wasn't enough to erase what came before, but it was enough to matter. And sometimes, mattering was the only victory worth fighting for. Kaylin looked out the window at the city sprawling below. Somewhere out there, people were suffering, being exploited, trafficked, erased. The work would never be finished. The fight would never be won completely. But every person saved was a life that mattered. Every predator exposed was a threat neutralized. Every survivor who rebuilt was proof that catastrophe didn't have to be fatal. The empire had burned. The monsters had fallen. And from the ashes, two broken people were learning how to build something worth defending. Not perfect, not pure, but real. And real was enough. Outside, the sky stretched wide and impossibly blue. Rain had given way to clear light, the kind of light that revealed everything without judgment. The scars, the damage, the work still left to do. Nia stood beside Kaylin at the window. "You ready?" she asked. "For what?" "For the rest of your life. The hard part's just beginning." Kaylin smiled. It felt genuine, earned. "I've been ready my whole life. I just didn't know what I was preparing for. And now? Now I know. This is what I was supposed to do. Not build empires, not accumulate power, not pretend violence can be sanitized. This. Helping people rebuild after monsters destroy them. It's not glorious, it's not redemptive, but it's necessary." "That's good enough." "Yeah, it is." They returned to their desks, back to the work. The endless, grinding, essential work of turning catastrophe into something survivable. The Black Harbor Syndicate was dead. Lucien Vey was gone. The trafficking network was dismantled, and two people who'd walked through hell together were finally learning what came after. Not salvation, not absolution, just life. Messy, complicated, difficult, and worth fighting for.